Okay, everyone, we're going to go ahead and start. So, because I hope everyone is able to hear me. My name is Deborah Adamo. I am the owner of Nannies Who Care, and I want to thank you for joining us today. We are excited to bring you International Nanny Training Day virtually and free. We have a fantastic lineup of speakers, and they've all donated their time to be here today. And we are going to have, after the speakers, we will have we'll have a break in between, and then we'll have a Q&A at the end. And right now we have about 53 participants on the call, but we anticipate more, so we're going to try to stay muted throughout and put your questions in the chat box. And I know this is a challenging time for all of us, but I am delighted to know that you're here because it shows your passion for helping children to learn and grow. Feel free to reach out to my agency, Nannies Who Care, at any time if you have any questions about your job, or if you have any questions about your job during COVID-19. So we can help. We also have resources for you to help in case we're not able to answer your questions. We'll find the right answer for you. Just a little statistics about Training Day. National Nanny Training Day was created in 2012 by a woman named Laura Brawley. And in 2016, Sue Downey took it over. And she has the organization Nannypalooza, if you're familiar with that. Since Sue Downey took it over, Training Day has turned into International Nanny Training Days with 5 countries participating, 40 cities, and over 2,000 attendees. All over the country right now, we have people signing into this event. We are one of 5 that are doing it virtually. All the others were either canceled their event or postponed it due to COVID-19. International Nanny Training Day was created to raise awareness of the importance of educating our childcare providers. So a little bit about Nannies Who Care. We started back in 1989, so we've been serving all of Tampa Bay, Sarasota, and Orlando for over 30 years. We are hiring right now, so in case you are not a member of our agency and you would like to be, just go to nannieswhocare.com, and we do have a job board that you can view the jobs that are available. And most of them will be starting, some may not be starting right away due to the virus, but they may be starting sometime after this passes. And but you want to get your application in because there is a lot of paperwork to be processed. So you want to be ready when our country is up and running again. Next, I would like to introduce my amazing team. And we're going to start with Dee Delberti. She is our permanent placement specialist. And she is the person, when you're looking for a permanent job, if you want to view on our job board the jobs, and then you need to speak to Dee. She was the one that will help you find the right family. So she's going to say a few words right now.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. Can everyone hear me, I hope? My name is Dee, and I am the placement specialist. So I am the person who, if you are looking for a permanent position, whether it be full-term or long-term or short-term, we do have families that are looking, just so you know. I do have several jobs on the job board that are on hold right now. If you're interested in them, let me know, and I can let you know what is going on. Of course, with COVID-19, some of the families, they're still looking, they're just holding off for a few weeks possibly. I have been with the agency for about a year now, so I'm excited that it's almost my 1-year anniversary. I've watched this agency grow, and I'm just so excited to be part of it. This is unprecedented for us. This is our first virtual training, and we're hoping it's a success, and we thank all of you for being here and taking time out of your day. We wish we could have seen you in person and given you a big hug, so we're going to give air hugs today. But just thank you for being a part of this family. I consider our family and our nannies to be one big family, so thank you.
Thanks, Dee. So one thing before I introduce the next person that I want to mention is that we're having a big storm here. So we're in the Tampa Bay area. So I don't know how it is where you are. I know we have a lot of Floridians on, and we're having the storm that's going through Florida. So if we were to lose power, you will log on using the same link if that should happen. So next, I want to introduce Sabrina Wright. She is our recruiter, and she is the person that actually put all of this together today. She deserves a lot of kudos because it was a big, hard job to organize this. First, we were planning it to be at the fire station in Clearwater like we normally have it. But of course, because due to COVID-19 pandemic, we had to switch gears, and now we have it virtually. So she has planned and done all of this. She is also the person that sends out those nanny tips that you're getting by email and text message, and she runs all that. So I want to introduce Sabrina Wright.
Hi, everybody. I think I muted myself. I'm Sabrina, and like Debbie said, I'm the recruiter for the agency. So I bring in all of our nannies. I get to know you guys. I process your file fully. My goal is to just make you look amazing so that families want to interview you. And then Dee and I together help make that placement with nannies and families. It's a lot of teamwork within WC. In addition, I am also the official nanny advocate. So if you are in our network or you wanting to work in our network, I am the person that you can contact, and I can walk you through, answer any questions, and give you any follow-ups. In addition, I am also sharing some giveaways that Nannypalooza. So International Nanny Training Day is held under the umbrella of Nannypalooza. So NWC runs the Tampa Bay chapter, and with this event every year, there are certain giveaways that are available. I'll be sending the link so everyone can sign up for those, but some examples of what you can register for is an INA membership, which is valuable. That's the International Nanny Association. They even have gift cards of $250. I think I saw a TV on there. So I'll send the link. Everybody, I encourage you to all sign up and register for those giveaways. And then other than that, we're just going to take today very fluidly, and we'll see all of this come together. I'm pretty confident it's going to be great.
Thanks, Sabrina. I'm sure it will.
Yay!
Okay. So next we have Amanda Franklin, and Amanda has many of you may remember Amanda because she worked in our office for 2.5 years. She has moved out of state and she works remotely now, but she is our social media manager, and she is the person that does all of our posting. You may have seen the adorable posts she puts on Facebook, Instagram, and tweets that she puts out there regularly. So here is Amanda.
Hello, good afternoon. Can you guys hear me? Everything's working, connected?
Yeah, good.
Awesome. So hi, I hope everyone is ready and excited. I am the social media manager for Nannies Who Care. I have been with Nannies Who Care since September 2017, right? The week of Irma is when I joined Nannies Who Care. And I miss all of the nannies that are on here that I don't get to talk to every day that I used to. But I'm so excited that I'm still part of Nannies Who Care. They are such an amazing work family. I can't imagine not being with them. So I tell Debbie that I just plan on being with her forever because I just can't see myself at any other position. So I really think that if you don't have a nanny network yet, look into joining Nannies Who Care. Definitely call Dee or Sabrina on Monday and see the benefits of joining our agency. And it's just a really good network to be with. So I'm so excited to be on this call, and I get to participate in Nanny Training Day because in the past I helped put it together. And I am in upstate New York now, right by Canada. So it snowed here yesterday. And I was really bummed that I wasn't going to be there. So even with all the craziness going on, I'm really excited that I'm still part of it today and I'm still on here. So I'm excited to just be a part of this and join another Nanny Training Day.
Thank you, Amanda, and we are excited to have you, of course. We hated letting Amanda go. We tried everything to hold her back and to tie her down and everything, but she left anyway. So, but we're not letting you go completely. You will always be with us. So, and happily. So, so just a few things to note before we get started with the first speaker. This training is being recorded, and pictures will be taken throughout the presentation, and they'll be shared on social media. Also, everyone, I asked you to, if you could stay muted. There is a chat box at the bottom. If you hover over at the bottom, you will see a chat box. You can click on it, and you can put your questions to everyone in the chat box. And then at the end of each speaker, we'll have a short Q&A, and we'll answer as many questions as we could get to after each speaker. And then at the after, we'll have a break in the middle, which will be about a 10-minute break, so restroom break, snack break. And then at the end, the last 30 minutes, we're going to have a roundtable Q&A. So we'll just ask questions in general then, and again, they'll be in the chat box where I'm going to try to call on people if we can. If it's not too noisy, we'll try to do that. And then you can ask any questions, of course, to Nannies Who Care. I don't know if the speakers will be on then, but all the way to the end, but you can always ask the questions after they speak. And there will be certificates of attendance that we'll be preparing, and we will email them to you, and you should get them within 2 weeks. So without further ado, Dee will introduce our first speaker.
Hi again, everybody. So I have the pleasure of introducing Petra. I hope I say your name right. Petra Viberlova Stanton. She's a certified passenger technician instructor. She has been certified since 2007. Currently, she works at Johns Hopkins All Children's as a Safe Kids supervisor. She supervises car seat classes, which we all know car seats are the most important thing to have them installed right. And she checks as well as other areas of prevention for unintentional injuries. So as soon as you are ready.
I am ready. Hi, everybody. I am Petra. I'm originally from the Czech Republic. I always like to get that out of the way because I don't want people thinking, where is she from as I'm speaking and not listening to what I'm actually saying. So, and at some point I was also a nanny. I lived in London for 2 years with a family as a live-in au pair. And I also, when I moved to the United States, babysat many children. And then fast forward, one thing led to another. A family introduced me to an agency who was looking for a car seat technician, and I went through the training. And I remember driving kids around and the seats shifting, etc. And that was a problem. I have a quick question though for the organizers. I cannot see my PowerPoint. Will you be displaying that?
Okay, so do I need to, you want me to go ahead and share it on my screen? Are you not able to share it?
Oh, I thought, I'm sorry, I didn't even have it open because I thought you guys were gonna share it.
Oh, so sorry.
I can bring it up if you have any problem.
Would you be able?
Yes, it's the one, and let me just make sure I have the one. It's titled Car Seat Safety.
Yes. I just misunderstood.
No problem. See if I can find it here.
So speaking of car seat safety, I'm going to talk about some of the things that we talk about. What brought me to car seat safety is while I was nannying, I attended community college here in Manatee County, Florida. I work at Johns Hopkins All Children's in St. Petersburg, but I was also connected through college to something called the Safe Kids Coalition, and I have a couple of slides about that. So I'm going to pass through those slides and just tell you about it. So Safe Kids Florida Suncoast is a coalition that works to prevent unintentional injuries in the greater Tampa Bay area. And we serve Sarasota, Manatee, Pinellas, Polk, and Pasco County. And there's another coalition in Hillsborough County in Tampa. And these coalitions meet each year and evaluate data based on the health department and based on the statistics from the CDC to see what is really happening in our area as well as nationally. And typically, car crashes remain to be one of the leading causes. And it's not a surprise because many of us travel every day multiple times, right? And for families and possibly nannies, that includes transporting them in the vehicles. So one of our goals is to transport them safely. Okay, here we go. So as far as Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital, it is a 259 bed hospital in St. Petersburg, Florida. The second slide covers the area our hospital works in. We have what's called outpatient care centers. So if a child has a surgery in St. Petersburg, but they live, let's say, down in Fort Myers, they can have a follow-up visit or physical therapy in Fort Myers in that area. So for some reason, I can't advance either. Deborah, are you able to advance for me, please?
Which screen are you on?
I am on the map of Florida. I'm on slide 2. Slide 3, can you please go to 4? So this is a Safe Kids Coalition's work worldwide. So each area, and I put this in there just in case you have you live in a different area than our outreach area, as I knew there were going to be 100 participants. Even if you're in Indiana, if you're in different part of Florida, you may have a Safe Kids Coalition that will be able to provide services such as car seat checks to you, and most of the time they are free. And next, please. So I mentioned that we identify the common injuries and recognize in the risk areas, and also we are trying to define what is really happening with children, which areas, like let's say in Sarasota, we had conducted a campaign to determine which zip codes or intersections might be higher for the car crashes, and we work with law enforcement to do that. Next, please. So this is the CDC chart, and the blue, the kind of like what you would have defined not as navy blue, but the regular blue shows motor vehicle crashes. So as you can see in that group under 1 year old, it is the third leading cause. The first one is unintentional suffocation, but Karen will talk about that later. For the age group 1 through 4, car crashes jump into the second leading cause of death from unintentional injuries. And then it remains #1 all the way to ages 34. So one of the things we really try to focus is on booster seat. Is the law in your state really aligned with what's the best practice for the American Academy of Pediatrics? And then those preteens who hop into the vehicle, maybe in the back seat, but may have their backpack on and are not properly seated if it comes to the crash. And then, of course, as the pre-drivers become drivers, there are other safety concerns in that area. Next, please. So as I said in my introduction, top leading causes of death according to Florida DOH was motor vehicle crashes overall for that age group 0 to 24. And then it's also there in the top 2 for hospitalizations. That means some children just get hurt and either went into the emergency room or ended up being hospitalized. So on the next slide, we are going to talk about a little bit about what happens in the crash. Next, please. So if a vehicle crashes against something or another vehicle, there are actually 3 types of crashes or 3 ways that can happen. It can be a frontal collision, and I'm going to demonstrate it with my hands, where the vehicle is moving forward and hits something, or it gets rear-ended by something. Then there are side impact crashes, and those are known as T-bones or slides. Basically, one vehicle collides like this with another vehicle. And then there are skids where somebody may lose control of their vehicle, rollover crashes, and slides. And it's important to understand all of these crashes because we will later talk about the crash dynamics and what is happening in the crash, and different things may happen in different type of crashes. Next, please. So what actually, as we defined the different crashes, there are also dynamics that happen within that collision. So one of the things is the vehicle crash that I defined, and then it's the human crash. And that means when the vehicle crashes, the body of the passengers continues to move until it's stopped upon another object. So for example, if I'm wearing a seatbelt, my body travels until the seatbelt stops it. The internal crash is also something happening to our organs. So let's say your stomach is traveling until it stops on the inner layer of your body. And this is basically something we are trying to prevent from happening or being less severe as the body rides out the crash forces. I've heard we may not be able to play videos. Is that correct? That is not a problem because the video just demonstrates. I selected 2012 Toyota Prius because that is the vehicle that I owned at the time that I presented that I created this presentation, and it shows the testing dummy basically going through that crash. Next. So a process, so what is injury prevention? So we talked about the mechanism of injury, which is the motor vehicle crash. The injury prevention is process used to decrease injuries or death rate due to an injury. Do you think it works 100% of the time? Probably not, right? Because there are extenuating circumstances. So if you would put in your chat, why do you think it does not work sometimes? That might be helpful. Anybody? No? So, oh, okay. Installation errors, the speed of the vehicle, improper use, correct. You know, all of the chest straps in the correct place. All of those things when it comes to car seats or vehicle crashes can be a factor. Sometimes it could be just the conditions of the road, something we don't have a user error, something we don't have a control of, operator error, correct. So I've heard at a conference actually, and this is where automated vehicles, and it's a whole separate conversations are coming into being, that all car crashes are actually 93% of a human error, which is a very interesting statistic as well, I thought. Next, please. And I did talk about this a little bit. So ways to prevent injuries from motor vehicle crashes in children, and I know that includes teens, so I put all of them in here. So it's child passenger safety, that means car seats and booster seats, pre-drivers and teen drivers. Caregiver, and where caregivers can be very involved from day one is modeling. So we have done observational surveys in high schools, and when you see the students leaving the parking lot, if a parent is not wearing a seatbelt, you can pretty much guarantee that the child is not wearing a seatbelt. If that's not an option in that environment, the child is always wearing the seatbelt. So, and that starts with car seats. The people who are not wearing seatbelts have lower use of car seats, lower use of booster seats. They continue to use them less. So that is one of the very important role that you play as a caregiver for that child. Model a good behavior, set a standard, and that is not negotiable. Next, please. So how do car seats or child restraints? We use car seats because it's more more common language friendly. I was told at my hospital by somebody who had no car seat experience that child restraint sounds like, you know, ways to restrain the child at a psychiatric institution. That's not what we mean when we say child restraint. We actually mean car seats. They provide protection in the crash in several ways. And they are built to absorb some of the crash forces. So for example, we will talk about rear facing car seats, and I'm making sure you can see me. So in the rear facing collision, the child sits in the car seat, and the car seat has a tendency to ride out the crash with the crash forces, where it prevents the injuries to the neck and to the head. And I'm doing these demonstrations in lieu of the videos. I don't mind sharing the links later in the chat so you can actually watch the video. So that might be helpful. The car seats also spread the crash forces over larger areas of the body. So if you imagine a car seat, and race car drivers use this too, the harnesses come over the shoulders. They have a little chest clip over here, then they go down, and they also go around the hips and the crotch. So that means the hip bones, the strongest areas of the body, will be crashing as the body moves, will be crashing towards the harnesses. And because they are so tight, they also decrease the movement of the head. And there is a great video about that, because head and neck is probably the biggest concern that we have, because if a child's head is large and is moving forward at a certain speed, then it really puts a strain on the neck or movement of the brain. Next. Okay, so first we start pre-birth, actually, because we see many parents and families who are expecting, and we talk about different types of child restraint. So this is the most common one, or very common seat for an unborn or a newborn child. They have them now starting at 3 pounds. Even Flow started a car seat at 3 pounds, which is extremely important, just in case you work with a family who has a premature child. We have utilized this to discharge from our NICU just a couple of weeks ago, actually. And the child was just over 3 pounds. So their light max and safe max start at 3 pounds. And they have, but even though the box or the manual may not say that, they went retroactively on that. And they can go to all the way to about 40 pounds, that based on what's currently on the market. So that seems like a giant weight range, right? What the manufacturers have done, they are trying to keep the children rear facing as long as possible. And that means all the way to, the American Academy of Pediatrics said up till 2, but now they removed that number, and they are saying as long as the weight limit or the high limit allows. Okay, go ahead. Next. So the next type of seat or car seats is a convertible seat. If you can look in detail onto the photo, typically on the side where the light gray area is, typically you can tell a convertible seat because it has 2 openings on the car seat where the seat belt or the lower anchor can go through. So, and that is because it can be installed rear facing and also changes to forward facing. And they start somewhere around 4 pounds and go all the way to 80 pounds or so. So that is a long-term solution. For example, if a family would be to buy a car seat for a nanny, that is a great solution because it lasts a long time. It's usually a pretty good investment. And some can even become booster seats. Next. And then we have combination seats. Those are the car seats like the one when you are looking at the screen on the left. Those go somewhere between 20 pounds all the way to 90 pounds. And they become a booster seat. As you can see on the seat on the left, it has the red around the hip area. That is where a seat belt would go once you stop using the internal harness of the seat. They also typically have something on the headrest of the area where you can thread the seat belt to fit correctly. And also belt positioning boosters. I want to clarify, booster seats act slightly differently in crashes than regular car seats, meaning we will they boost the child up to fit the seatbelt correctly. So basically, vehicle seatbelts are made to fit adults, not children. So if I'm wearing my shirt here today now, and it's an adult, small, adult, medium, or whatever, if a 4-year-old comes to me, chances are it's not gonna fit them. It's the same with seatbelts. Chances are seatbelts will not fit a 4-year-old and the booster seat or 5-year-old. The booster seat is there to boost them up to fit that seatbelt correctly. And a correct fit for a booster seat is to go over the collarbone, through the chest bone, on the hip bones. Next. So there are some recommendations. I'm going to let you read that recommendation from American Academy of Pediatrics. They recently revised it, or in 2018, I guess it's not as recent anymore. But the child should remain rear facing as long as the weight or height limit of the seat allows. And typically that's stated either in the manual or on the stickers, on the labels on the car seat. They should remain in that forward facing harness as long as that weight and height of the seat allows. And they should ride in the booster seat once they outgrow the 5-point harness. But the very bare minimum is 4 years and weighs 40 pounds. So it's not one or the other, it's both. So my daughter was 7 years old, but was 37 pounds. Do you think she should be in a booster seat or no? At 7 years old, first grader who is 37 pounds, yes or no? No, the answer is actually not in a booster seat. She should still be in a conventional car seat, because to move into the booster seat, they need to be 4 and 40 pounds. That's the very bare minimum. And she was not meeting the weight requirement. If I am to say something, she challenged everything that I've ever knew when it came to car seats. She unbuckled and did all those things. And we can address that later. I will come back or I will be in the round table, so you can ask me particular questions about that. Correct. Somebody is saying now, no, she doesn't meet the weight. Correct. So when you look at statements like these, take them as a guideline for your situation, right? So even though people will have said, like, she's going to be made fun of, and I'm like, well, you know, that's really secondary to her safety, right? So, and then I included seatbelt on there. There are 5 ways to make sure the child fits in a seatbelt. So when they are seated with their back against the vehicle seat, they're able to bend their seat over, bend their knees over the edge of the seat. Their feet should be able to reach the ground. The seat belt goes over the collarbone and the hip bones. And my big one, very big one, is they are able to sit like that for the entire ride, right? Because it's not good if they go like, or forward, right? Because then they are not properly positioned in the seat. Next. And I'm trying to keep with the time as the best I can. Forgot to turn on my timer, so please give me heads up if I'm over. So based on the previous statements, let's think about some scenarios from real life. 18 months old who is 23 pounds, but family has a rear-facing only seat that goes to 22 pounds. What do you think would be your next step based on what I just shared? Somebody is saying time for the convertible. All good guesses. It needs a new seat, correct? And we see a lot of those families who need a new seat. Convertible seat probably would be the best choice, because it will give them longer time in that rear-facing position. Yes? Actually stay rear-facing, all good answers. Now, I did use my daughter here. I already spoiled that. So she was in a 5-point harness, but one of her classmates was actually, I often use this because it was a very public case. They were 2 identical twins on the way to school. They were 6 years old and 40 pounds. So they were meeting the requirement of the booster seat. Their mom bumped the curb, hit a tree, and one of the twins was goofing around in that booster seat. So he got pretty severely injured, like had to relearn to walk, talk, was in a coma. I mean, pretty severely injured at 35 miles an hour. So when you are looking for those transitions, also look at the maturity level of the child. So it might be that all of their classmates are in a booster seat, but Your kid is more active even though he or she doesn't have special needs than average child might be. So keep them in that 5-4 in harness longer than possible. Next, please. So when it comes to transporting children, we also have to look at where does everyone sit? Direction installation. So one big rule is do not have more people than there are seat belts in the vehicles. And it is shocking that we still have to say that, but when we work in certain areas or with some populations, they don't understand that. They might be, sometimes it just does not work for the family. But the general rule is if you have 5 people and 5 seat belts, everybody fits. Now, you might be in circumstances that, of course, the back seat, and I don't know if you can see it on my shirt, I wore my back seat awareness shirt today just for this presentation, but in the back seat is always the safest way for the child to be. But sometimes you may find yourself in circumstances, and I give you an example. I worked with a family who had a Toyota Corolla, which is a very small car. They had 2 children under the age of 4, and she was expecting twins, which means for the mom to transport them safely, somebody will have to go in the front seat. Even though we don't like it, sometimes it has to happen. So with that said, what do we do to take the safety precautions? We make sure the airbag is turned off in that front seat. We will not put ever a rear-facing car seat in the front seat. We would choose a child who is in a forward-facing seat and move them as far as back as possible and make sure they're properly seated. And again, I have a little bit of a video. I'll share that later in the chat. The other thing is when we are putting car seats, oftentimes we hear, well, but they fight, right? So you may want to separate the children to eliminate the distractions. Now, the middle seat, we typically recommend for the one child is the safest, but it's only safest when the car seat can be safely installed there, and there are some considerations when it comes to installations, like maybe if there is a hump, etc., or maybe nobody can sit around them. So there are many different things that I would have to have specific questions to explain all of them. But just when you're putting everybody in the vehicle, think about it logistically, like what would be the best, safest way to travel. Next, please.
And Petra, we are at the 5-minute mark.
Okay, I should be able to finish. So this link, even if you put in, just type into Google, Safe Kids Ultimate Car Seat Guide, you can put in the child's name. It doesn't collect the information, weight and height, and it will link you to installation videos and tips about which car seat the child should use. And I love this picture. We've used this picture as a marketing material for a while because is this right? And the baby's kind of looking, am I or am I not? Thick coats, if anybody's out of Florida, because this is not as much of an issue, should not be on the child. Put them over the child and make sure those harnesses are not as loose as they are on this baby. But I just love that picture. Next. And this is the correct harnessing for the child. If again, this is Kleck Foom car seat, you can find it so you can read it a little better. But the harnesses for should be, and there's a difference. They should be coming out from below the shoulders if the child is rear facing, or at or above if they are forward facing. They need to be so tight you cannot pinch any fabric. The chest clip or retainer clip needs to be right at the armpit level right here. And again, it needs to be snug around the hips. Next. There are some additional things when it comes to vehicles that we are pretty passionate about. One, never leave a child unattended, not even for 2 minutes in Florida or other states. Even in the early spring months, the vehicles heat up very quickly. They can rise as much as 19 degrees in 20 minutes. Little children under the age of 5 do not self-regulate body temperatures. It can be deadly for them. Create reminders, even though it may not seem necessary. So we are saying put something that you will need, like a bag in the back seat if you're having a busy day. Make sure all car doors are locked if the car is parked in the driveway. So there are instances when the child may wander out of the house and find their way into the vehicle, they get entrapped and they don't know how to get out. So that's a very important. And other hazard. So the installation video didn't work, but to install a car seat, there is a feature where you pull out the seat belt all the way, which switches it to a locked mode, right? And then that means the car seat is pre-crash locked, you tighten it, etc. Well, if a child is sitting next to a seatbelt, and that also happened to a friend of mine, they can start playing with the center seat belt and it can lock. And if they strap it around themselves, they can strangle that way. Her son was okay, but they had to cut the seat belt and completely replace it. And it took them like 6 hours and $600. So still not a great outcome for the family, but the child was safe. Always look at the airbag signs. SRS airbags stands for a supplemental restraint system. They work with the primary, which is car seats and seat belts, so know where they are and what they tell you. Projectiles and every loose object in the car can become a missile. So if you have a stroller next to a baby and you're traveling 40 miles an hour, time, let's say 10 pounds, so it's 40 times 10, so it's gonna hit with a 400 pound force. So use that calculation if possible. Make sure everything is in the trunks or cargo tie downs. Next. And I hope we are ready to roll. We have maybe like 2 minutes for questions. Is that right? Or no minutes for questions?
You have about 5 minutes for questions. So if anybody has any, you can add them to the chat.
Mm-hmm. So I wanted to add here, if you want to look up the Safe Kids Coalition in your area, you can probably go to www.safekids.org and look up something about coalitions. And we have first questions. Toys should not be loose in the vehicle, correct. So if they're like really soft plush toys, that's not much of a problem. I've seen the mirrors that have batteries on it. So that's the other thing, the mirrors, they are non-regulated products. So they can become actually loose even though they're deceiving that way. But if they're heavy, the rule of thumb is weight times speed when it comes to car crashes. So if it's moving, it can hit you and it can hurt you. We had a giant cookie example in a class and grandpa had a red mark on his forehead from it. So, which I think is a great example because it's kind of funny. Can we get the printable version of the PowerPoint? That's a question for Sabrina and Deborah, I think. Safekids.org, training is recorded. If the parents insist they're 18 months old, be front facing even in your vehicle, what is a good way to handle that situation? Ooh, that's a tough one. So as we teach, when we teach caregivers, this comes up, and sometimes it's like a argument that is like, but they like to see. Well, if they've never seen before, how do they know what they're gonna see, etc. But I typically go into explanation. Oh, okay, this is the best practice. That's what the American Academy of Pediatrics recommend. I really feel comfortable with that. In our situation as technicians, the parent or the caregiver has the final choice, but I would try to, and you can also email me, and Sabrina has my email. I would probably try to come up with legitimate resources, and I would say, I do not feel comfortable traveling with your child this way. Would that be okay? You know, because I would just try to convince them as much as they can, because you will be that caregiver, and that would be a difficult situation if something was to happen. My son is 11 but slim, just at 68 pounds. Should he be in any type of booster seat? He fights. So my daughter is 11 and 68 pounds also now, and she now fits in the center seating position correctly, right? So sometimes it depends on the height. He is just about 4'9". So he's at the tricky part, because the 4'9" is the 50th percentile. So take him to the vehicle, make sure the seatbelt doesn't ride on the neck or the shoulder. It goes over the collarbone, chest bone, and the hip bones. Make sure his knees can bend over the edge of the seat. And that's important because if they don't, the kids have a tendency to do this, like slouch down, and then the seatbelt goes up and it goes on their soft stomach. It can cause a seatbelt syndrome. My daughter watched some of our car seat videos and she doesn't fight me on anything anymore because she gets it, right? So that might be something to Google and show him, listen, this is why I'm saying what I'm saying. Can you email PowerPoint? Training is recorded. Thank you, thank you. So I think everybody is good. And if you can think of anything until that roundtable, I'll be there.
Thank you so much, Petra, for that valuable information. It was a great presentation. And this is the entire training day is being recorded. So I'm sure that Sabrina can get you a copy of this, and whoever may want to see it. So I'm going to stop this screen share. And we'll see. And Sabrina's going to be introducing the next speaker. Thank you, Petra.
Thank you, Petra. That was awesome. Okay, so Karen McCauley, she is also from Johns Hopkins. She's the director of the Pediatric Trauma Program, and she is responsible for the trauma program across the continuum of trauma care. So this is safety across the spectrum. She also works with the Safe Kids team. So I will let her take this now, and thank you so much, Karen and Petra.
Awesome, thank you so much. So let's just go on the quick. You can see and you can hear me okay? All right, perfect. Well, thank you for the opportunity to be here. I think that you have talked about and alluded to, it is worth discussing one more time, these unprecedented times. And nannies, thank you for all of the work that you do. You do incredible work every day. And you, with your expertise in dealing with children, is really helpful to parents who sometimes are not exactly sure what they can do. And they look to you to often be the expert. And so in this crazy time in the world, one of the things that we've quickly seen here at our children's hospital is that parents are very distracted. And that may include you with your own children. People are worried about money. They are worried about their jobs. They are worried about their health and the health of their families. And the more we have found people to be distracted and worried, the more we're finding injuries to kids. And I'll give you an example of that. We started closing down Florida. I'm in Florida, by the way. And we began closing down Florida about March 16th. And within the next 4 weeks, we had 7 kids that near drowned, 2 kids that fatally drowned and died, and 1 child that was under the water a very long time and had a very bad anoxic injury, which is medical for a lot of brain damage. And it became very clear to all of us very quickly that that is related to a couple of things. Distracted parents that I talked about, but also kids that are home all of the time now, and they're bored as well, right? They're out of routine. Many of them are used to going to school or maybe going to childcare. So now you've got a curious and bored child coupled on top of a distracted or worried parent, and that can spell a lot of disaster. And so in this time, more than probably any other time ever in our world, we need to pay attention to what the kids are doing and what the environment is that can keep them safe. And so, let's see if I can figure this out. There we go. So why do kids get in trouble? And I say it that way, why do they get in trouble? Well, they get in trouble because they're kids, and they get in trouble because they're young adults. The things you would expect to see from kids. And I know the next presentation is going to be about child development, so I intended on purpose not to spend a lot of time talking about it, but I need you to know and understand that first and foremost, kids are curious. And you've probably all heard curiosity has killed the cat. And we know that curiosity can injure and hurt our children as well. They don't know any better because they just developmentally don't know any better. They have no understanding of risk. Now I'm going to ask you, just for curiosity's sake, how did you figure out the stove was hot? Well, I'm guessing you figured it out because you touched it. I also bet that someone told you not to touch the stove because it was hot and it could burn you. And nevertheless, when they said that to you, you yourself reached your hand out and touched the stove and went, oh, the stove is hot. And so it doesn't matter how many times we tell children not to do it because it's not safe or not to do it because something bad can happen. They still are just children, and that's the way that they learn. And they really have no idea of risk. And we'll talk a teeny bit about pedestrian safety, but I'll say it here. A kid is egocentric, right? They think if you see them, or if they see you, you see them. So think about playing with your little toddlers, your littler kids, right? And you put a blanket over their head, and they're sure that because they can't see you, you can't see them. And when it comes to pedestrian safety, kids think, well, I see you in the big car, and so surely the big car sees me, and the car is not going to hit me. And so understanding that about childhood development is really important. I'm also going to say to you that a 4-year-old is a 4-year-old is a 4-year-old. And they were a 4-year-old 1,000 years ago. And they will be a 4-year-old 1,000 years from now. And yes, there are across the bell curve kids that will do different things, but they will still act like children, and they will still work their way through the developmental stages, no matter how much you wish that they would not. And it makes me laugh. I have a girl who's about to turn 21, and I told her not to jump on the bed since the time she was old enough to jump on the bed. And literally, when I pick her up at college next week, we will stop at a hotel, and she will likely jump from one bed to another bed. Even though I've said for 20 years, be careful about jumping on the bed because you can get hurt. And so there are things that are not going to change about children that we need to pay attention to. It's really important to understand.
Sorry to interrupt. We have some requests for you to turn on your video. Is that possible?
Oh, who I am?
Yes. Could you turn on your video so that everyone is wanting to see you, if that's at all possible? Hello. Okay. Sorry.
Hi. How are you? It always feels best when you don't see me, but I'm in a fairly safe environment with the northern lights. I'm sorry, Sabrina. I meant to turn that on and didn't. Okay. So, hi, everybody. Straight from Florida, where it is storming. My dad is up in Pennsylvania, and it was snowing yesterday. So, I've given you the northern lights just for safe background. So, the other thing I really want you to know and understand is that children, no matter what their age, learn by all of their senses. And in fact, I think we as adults learn by our senses too. Because when I walk through the store, I can't begin to tell you how many times I stick my hand out and feel it. I feel the blanket to see if it's soft. I feel the towels to see whether they're thick enough. And so I'm using more than just my sight to tell me whether it's something that I'm interested in. And so, you know, for those of you that take care of babies, from the moment they figure out that they have a hand and a foot and a mouth, they use their mouth to test everything. They taste everything, they put it all in their mouth, they reach out, they touch anything, they just have no idea. And so it's really important for us when we look at our environments to be sure that the environment is safe for them because we understand their behavior. We understand they're going to reach out, they're going to touch it. So if it's sharp, they're going to hurt themselves. If it's small, they're going to put it in their mouth and they're going to chew on it and swallow it or spit it out. And so it's important to know those things. And the final thing is, I don't know how many of you end up taking care of adolescents, but many of you, I'm sure, have adolescents or those that will be approaching adolescence, or like me, you've survived adolescence because it was a complicated time. But people in general, not just teenagers, but people in general believe that they're invincible. And I think we think we're invincible because that's a good way to live our life. So when I drove here to the hospital this morning, I didn't spend a lot of time thinking about the fact that I might crash my car, and I didn't worry too much of dying of COVID today, right? I just carried on in my life in a way that was meant to be a fairly positive way. Now, I do a lot of things to keep myself safe. I wore my seatbelt on the way here. I followed the speed limit for the most part on the way here. And then here in this hospital, I'm required to be masked. I'm not now because I'm in an office by myself. But I put on my mask as I approach the hospital because that's one of the rules we have to stop the sharing of the disease process as we're uncertain how that all works. And so there's many things that I do, as I'm sure you do, within your daily life that are meant to keep us safe. But at the end of the day, we still think we're going to survive to tomorrow. We don't go to bed very often thinking I might die overnight and not be alive in the morning. But it's really important to understand that about especially our adolescents and young adults. So I forgot to ask you, or didn't suggest, but hopefully you all have a paper and pen because knew you were going to take notes, because today was going to be so much fun for you. So we're going to take a little bit of a mini break, and there are 16 pictures here. And if you would, just over the next 2 minutes or so, very quickly write down, what do you think is not safe? What are your concerns as you see these things? And then in about 2 minutes, I'll be quiet in that time frame, we'll work our way through the presentation, and we'll come back to this slide at the end and see how many of you could quickly find 16 things in this environment that might be dangerous to the kids that we take care of. Sorry, didn't mean to do that. Get my hands off the control. All right, so by my time frame, I'm going to guess we're at about 2 minutes. Thank you everyone for using the chat box as well. We're going to come back to this. Let me move over here, find my mouse. All right, so I'm going to keep on going, and we're going to come back to this at the end. And so Safe Kids Worldwide, which Petra has talked a lot about, has come out with protecting children in your home. And what are the facts? Now, I think the first myth we need to talk about is that we all think our kids are safe at home. And thankfully, for the most part, they are safe at home. It's a really great environment that we work hard to keep our kids safe. And when they go out of the house, that's when we start to worry what's happening, what's going on in somebody else's house. Do they have firearms? Do they have an unprotected pool? Is there a danger going on? But we think in our own house that our kids are safe. But it's important to understand that 3.5 million or more kids go to the emergency department for the kinds of injuries that commonly happen in homes. And in fact, when we look at where people are injured, they are often injured in their home. And it's really important to note that again, because sometimes we get complacent or remiss. And so I don't know how well you can see this, but it's really important to talk about. In the top slide there at the top left, it's the bedroom, that say they keep medicine and cleaning products in a low shelf or an unlocked cabinet. 73% of parents say they place items in the crib with their baby. 1 in 8 respondents say they have left their young child alone in the bathtub for 5 minutes or longer. 14% of parents say that they check their smoke alarm batteries. So that means that many do not, and do not know whether their smoke alarms have good batteries in them. And 48% of parents surveyed say they haven't secured TVs and furniture to prevent them from tipping over. So what do we need to do? Well, here is my personal pet peeve in injury prevention with kids. Oftentimes, the first thing that we say, and we did it here in this handout as well, is to give young children your full and undivided attention. Well, this says in the bathtub or around water. But I stopped at give your young children your full and undivided attention. Because we oftentimes say to people, you should watch your child. Okay, well, most of us as parents stop listening because we do watch our children. I hear that in water safety all the time. Make sure you're watching your child. Well, we're going to talk a little bit about water safety, but I'll say it here. For the children that drown between the age of the fact that they're mobile until about the age of 4, when it's the leading cause of death, those children are actually supervised by a competent adult. But the child has left the environment. They've left the house and gotten access to the pool. Now, sometimes people drown because they're swimming and they just go under the water and we're not paying attention. And I've got a video that I'm hoping will work and I can show you. But many times, I, the parent, have gone to the bathroom. Got to do that. Maybe I'm cooking dinner. Maybe I'm taking a shower. Maybe even I'm so exhausted I fell asleep while my child was playing in their bedroom. And the child got bored. They got access to the outside and access to the water, whether that be a swimming pool at my own house or an open body of water in the neighborhood. So they weren't unsupervised. They were just curious children with an adult that thought they were safe in their house. So very quickly, I'm going to run you through some tips room by room. In the kitchen, you want to make sure you have a good smoke and carbon monoxide alarm. Many people will say don't put the smoke alarm in the kitchen because I don't know about you, but I set it off often because I'm not a very good cook. So I'm a very good nurse, but I'm a terrible cook. And so you may want it outside of the kitchen so that you don't set it off all the time. You want to be sure that your families that you work with have an escape plan. You want to make sure you know exactly where you're going to meet outside. So don't say we're going to the neighbor's house because maybe half of you will go to the neighbor to the right and the other half will go to neighbors on the left. And although we'll tell people not to go back in a burning building, I can promise you if you think your child is in the burning building, you're on your way back in no matter what we say. And it would be horrible if something happened to you because the child was at the neighbors to the left while you were at the neighbors to the right. So make a specific tree, make a specific mailbox, or make a specific neighbor's porch. You want to cook on the back burners, or you want to have handles turned and hot stuff out of reach. You don't want to be holding the child while you're cooking. You want to have them over maybe in a high chair where they're safer. You want all of your household cleaning products out of sight, both in the kitchen and the bathroom. And one of the most important phone numbers you should have is poison control, 1-800-222-1222. And not just for little kids who are going to eat all crazy things, but think about all of the challenges that our adolescent kids have as well. Who thought it was a good idea to eat a Tide Pod, right? What about other kinds of drugs or other things that they might be doing just with peer pressure and that opportunity for challenge? For any stairs and windows, you want to make sure you have approved safety gates that are hooked into the wall when possible. You want to keep furniture away from windows, especially on the higher floors. When I lived in Philadelphia, we had kids falling out of second and third story windows often. They'd have a bed underneath the window and the window up because it was hot with just a screen. But as the parent came home, the child stood up on the bed, looked out the window, and because the screen is not very steady, they were able to fall out that window and get themselves in trouble. You can see on the picture on the top right that there is a window guard. I will tell you they're super unattractive. That's probably the most attractive one I've seen. And so it's difficult for families to want to spend so much money on a house and then put up an ugly window guard. But you want to make sure that kids on the second or third floor don't have access to fall out of a window. In living rooms and all rooms, you want to make sure that you have all of the furniture up and attached to the wall. And I saw many of you saw it, that the child that was climbing up, opening up the drawers and climbing up the furniture, puts themselves at incredibly high risk because as their heavy bodies get up, the furniture is likely to tip. We see a number of children each year that have had dressers and televisions and things fall on top of them and crush them underneath of the furniture. Flat screen TV should be mounted to the wall high enough that a child can't hang on it. Box style TVs should be on steady furniture. You want to have and read warning labels on toys and games. If you have little people around, you want to make sure that little toys are put away. Don't leave the toys scattered and make sure that they get picked up. And you can look at the www.safekids.org product recalls to understand when toys are being recalled. They do a lot of work to let us know what toys pieces can come apart and kids can get choking on. Out in the playroom, again, you want to keep small objects out of reach. Interesting conversations about button batteries as well as magnets. They swallow anything. My own daughter put a small hearing aid battery in her ear. She was big enough to know better, but she found it on the playground and was playing a magic trick. I didn't know it was a battery, so I left it there. She told me she had something in her ear. By the time I finally took her to the hospital, she had a thermal burn. She'd burned off her eardrum and had a 3rd-degree burn in her ear. She ended up having 7 surgeries, and she wears a hearing aid in that ear because she can't hear very well, even after all of the surgeries. And so gift cards that are greeting cards that have batteries in them, again, a bored child will tear it apart and may swallow that button battery or put it up their nose or put it in their ear. Magnets can also be difficult because as they go through the bowel or through their stomach, they can get themselves stuck on opposite sides and they can get necrotic and they can go on and be septic and they can die. Petra talked about seatbelts and the choking hazard that can be with seatbelts when they get stuck, and think about cords on blinds as well, that they can get themselves wrapped up in it because they're climbing and something bad can happen. We want to make sure that we give the children our undivided attention whenever they're in a tub or any kind of water. We might consider putting locks on our toilets. We want to make sure our water temperatures are less than 120 degrees Fahrenheit because a little child will burn very quickly, as our older parents will as well. And we want to lock all of our medicines up. I didn't know there were locks, as you can see there in that small picture. There are actually locks that you can put on medication bottles to keep children from being able to have access to them. In the bedroom, babies should always sleep on their backs until they are capable of rolling over on their own. They should always sleep in their own bed with a firm mattress, fitted sheets, no toys, no bumper guards. And we want to make sure we keep our firearms out of bedside tables with our guns locked and ammunition separate. Even kids who know they're not supposed to touch guns, the literature shows us that if they find one, they will pick it up and they will say, as they're playing with it, I'm not supposed to play with this, I'm supposed to call an adult. And so we want to be sure that they don't have access to things that can hurt them. All kinds of hazards in the outside. Lawnmowers, especially when kids are riding with parents on lawnmowers. 2 of the most tragic injuries I've seen in the last couple of years are kids who fell off while they were riding on a lawnmower with their parent and the lawnmower ran over them because they couldn't get the blade stopped fast enough. Petra talked a lot about vehicle safety and the use of car seats and booster seats and seatbelts, but you can see here that this child sitting behind, the mother hadn't walked around, could have easily backed up. I'm thankful that our engineers spend a lot of time trying to find things that require us to make our kids safer. That's the invent of backup cameras. Maybe we use them so we don't hit things, but most importantly, we use them so we don't run over a child that we didn't see that was back of the car. Scooters, bikes, skates, and skateboards, and the need for helmets and safe riding, and pedestrian safety, as you can see, walking in crosswalks, and understanding that cars are distracted, or the drivers of the cars are distracted, and they may not see you even if you're in a crosswalk. I'm going to try this video here in a second because I think it's really important for you to understand. I think lots of us live in Florida. Drowning is a year-round problem here in Florida because our pools are open all year round. It's both pools and open water. And the best protection are barriers, including door alarms to let you know that someone's left the house. Fences around pools that kids can't get into. And please don't forget the animal or the dog door, as you can see here on the right. It's funny the first time a child climbs through the dog door, but not as funny the next time they go through. All right, I'm going to see if my technology works. I'm going to, let me see if I can figure this out.
The only issue I'm anticipating is that the video might lag a little and we might not be able to hear it, but we'll let you know.
Okay, so I'm going to try this. Can you see the video?
You can see.
All right, I'm going to try and run this. I won't run the whole thing because I know it's really long. Can you hear it?
Doesn't sound like we have audio. unfortunately. I am putting together a list of resources afterward in lieu of the videos since that wasn't successful. So we could also have these links on those resources too.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, you guys. I thought for sure I was going to be able to figure that out.
Zoom, I'm sorry.
You don't need to be sorry. Okay, let me just turn it off so it doesn't keep running. I'm running out of time anyway. All right, so it's a really great video, you guys. I'll give you the skinny mini in it. They put some kids into a pool surrounded by adults and asked them to pretend to drown. And it took 21 minutes before anyone around the pool realized that there was a child under the water. And so it was really to highlight a couple of different things. The drowning is very silent, that people think that they will hear people flapping around or, you know, yelling out for help. But the fact of the matter is people will go under the water, and if they get to come up at all they're trying to do is breathe, and so they are not shouting for help. And so it is not a Baywatch drowning where people are flailing and yelling for help. It's very silent. A child will just go under the water because they're head heavy, and they will stay underneath the water and not come up again. And so it's a really interesting video, again, at how long it took somebody to realize that there was danger going on. Really quick here in these last few minutes I have, I want to talk about adolescent safety. I'm not sure if you take care of adolescents. I'm sure you don't, but you might have some of your own, or you may have adolescents living in the homes that you're working in. And there are a couple important things for us to recognize or to understand about our adolescents. And when I say adolescents, I think we all think 13, but probably in this world today, it's as young as 8 or 9 years of age. And so we know that these kids are smoking. 2,500 kids under the age of 18 years try a cigarette each and every day. 58% of kids told us they had their first drink by 18 years, and almost 30% by 15 years. And 16% of 12th graders use marijuana, and 9% admit that they use amphetamines. And so watching for the warning signs of substance use and abuse is important. 1 in 5 children, high school students, tell us that they have been bullied. It can be verbal, social, physical, or cyberbullying. I think this world of social media allows us to have access to each other 24 hours a day. When I was a kid, I'm a lot older, hopefully you couldn't see that on the video, but you know, nobody called my house after 8 p.m. and you certainly never called before 9 a.m. So from 8 p.m. until 9 a.m., there was no way for you to get a hold of me, right? And my parents protected me. And again, I couldn't be bullied 24 hours. But with social media and cell phones and cyberbullying, we can never get away from people. Some of the signs or concerns we can think about if we're worried that someone might be bullying are unexplained injuries, a loss of important belongings, frequent headaches, stomach aches, concern with faking illnesses, difficulty sleeping, declining grades, disinterest in school, and other activities. So that can be bullying, can be substance use and abuse. It can be sexual assault or sexual abuse. Frequent headaches, stomach aches, concern with faking illness. In a teenager, it could be a million different things, but stick it high on top of your list of things that it's more than just the basic, I don't want to go to school today. Suicide is the leading cause of death for kids 15 to 24 years of age. Signs that will be concerning are talking about wanting to kill themselves or to die, talking about having no purpose, feeling trapped, or being a burden, and withdrawing. Lots of scary stuff to think about for our kids.
Karen, we are at 5 minutes left for presentation, and then we'll have 5 minutes for questions.
Okay, awesome. Well, we're here. So can you spot the safety risk? And it's probably complicated to have all of you yell out. So I'll run across them at the top, and we'll talk really briefly about them here in the last couple of minutes. So at the top, you've got pills and candy, understanding that people do not know the difference. Even ourselves, we don't know the difference. And so we want to make sure that our medications are away and we know to call poison control if there's a concern. We've got the baby sleeping in a crib with all kinds of things, sleeping on their stomach. So if this baby would move over and get wedged down in the edge of that bed, or turn their face down and be unable to get their face back up, they will suffocate. Suffocation or co-sleeping has become the leading cause of death here in my area in Florida for babies of this age because it's so incredibly damaging. You've got the staircase that's unsecured, the window that doesn't have window guards, and if you see beyond the child over there to the right, you can see that this is a high up window. You've got the child with their hand on the stove, and so if that stove was hot, bad things could happen. The chemicals underneath, The baby crawling with access to that waterway. The child underneath who's curious in the kitchen, you could easily see how he could pull down something off of the stove. The children behind the car that could be run over. The child riding on the riding lawnmower. Our own pets that are stressed out because we're home all of the time now, and at the end of the day are just animals, and children don't know not to pinch them or scare them. All of those little crazy toys that are choking hazard. The child trying to get up there and reach the remote control at the top of the TV, climbing up the furniture, and that TV and dresser are coming down on top of them. The child finding an unsecured gun in a drawer. Children without bicycle helmets. And there on the right are adolescents doing all kinds of crazy adolescent things. So at the end of the day here, for me, I say to you, there are risks everywhere. And it is our job as the keepers of the children that we take care of to do our very best to change our environment in a way to do everything we can to keep them safe. So I hope that this information was helpful. I'm going to guess that you're going to go back into your world and look at it in an entirely different way with new eyes, and we'll find things that you can do to keep kids safe.
So we have time for questions. We have about 5 minutes. So if you guys wanted to type some into the chat box, we can read them out. I'm just hearing a lot that thank you, Karen, and you're a great speaker. So that's good. So if anybody has questions, put them in there and I will read them out for Karen.
I'll look on the screen. I got 2 screens, so I tend to find myself looking to the right a lot.
Okay. I had a question. I know in the beginning you said that there was maybe more mistakes happening because children are home for so long. Do you have any recommendations to further avoid? And then we have a longer one later after that.
So I'm hoping that it's just simply awareness, you know, that we just pay more attention to it and we talk about it. Is going to help kind of just bring it there. I personally like door alarms to help us know if kids are going outside, and then if we've changed our environment in general, I think they're safer. But it's definitely worrisome. I don't know that I have a good answer. I know I teach at the college on the side, and each and every time I'm kind of online with the students, I say to them, if you've got kids at home, please don't be so focused on me that you forget that they're out and you know, have the ability to get themselves into some trouble.
Yeah, mine have been bored.
They are bored. And
bored
kids, just like bored adults get themselves in trouble, bored kids, just again, because they don't know any better, get themselves in trouble.
So we have a question here. It's more of, and I don't know if any of the team wants to chime in, but she nannies for twins, and she wants to know any better way to maybe talk to the parents about sleeping in the bed with toys, because we all know the suffocation risk. So do you have any suggestions as far as how to bring that up?
I think simply just showing it. There's a lot of evidence-based literature and research that's out there. I'm sure you guys find yourself constantly in a little bit of a rift with, you know, that parents are making what you might consider unsafe or different parenting decisions than you would make. For sure, when you're in charge, I would make sure that they do not sleep with toys in their bed. At the end of the day, I'll tell you, I do my very best to educate people and give them the best information we have. And then I step away and say, not on my watch. So that baby is not going to suffocate in the crib on my watch, but it is their child and their consequence, however tragic it is. And I don't mean that in a mean way. I just mean it from the perspective that at the end of the day, the parents are the people who are making the good and bad parenting decisions. And I say that because I've made so many bad parenting decisions myself, by the way.
I understand. And of course, NWC recommends communication for things like that. Always have family meetings and check-ins. Did you want to read off of the chat screen, Karen, or do you want me to pick out the ones? How would you like to do that?
So firearms in the home, also a very, very hard conversation to have. The literature tells us that most people will tell you they have it for safety, but that they are really unsafe. We can all read the literature and the news that shows us that it's not safe for kids. I think it's a fair conversation. I can tell you as a parent, when my daughter would go to friends' houses, I did ask, is there going to be a parent there? Are there unsecured firearms? You know, without kind of being an overbearing parent, I did my best to try and check out the environment. I'd make sure my daughter knew that, you know, in other houses there were other circumstances, but that she was still, you know, going to be held accountable. Difficult. Somebody asked how long till they have a pillow. We would recommend certainly not in a crib. They need to have a pillow. They're okay once they're old enough to roll over in their bed. Like once you go in the room and that you've started them on their back and they've rolled over onto their stomach, now they're getting the skills to be able to move around. But you don't want any spaces in the bed where they can get wedged down in between. So we see parents that fall asleep with the child sleeping on their chest in a recliner, and the child slips down and gets stuck between the edge of the chair and the arm, where they get themselves into trouble. So again, not easy questions, but once a child is, you know, getting up to that 1 year and they have good control over their head and they can move around, you have a lot less concern about them getting themselves into that rollover trouble. No toys and blankets in a crib. No, all of us are going to die on the hill saying not ever, but again, parents are going to be able to make those decisions. And it looks like I've grabbed them all. I'll make sure you guys have my email address. If you have any questions or things that we can provide in addition to, please don't hesitate to reach out. Again, I want to thank you for the opportunity to be here with you today, and thanks for spending your day, at least some time of it today, learning about childhood safety.
Thank you so much, Karen.
Thank you, Karen. That was an amazing presentation, and I think we all got a lot out of it. One of the things that I like about having the training day is that I do agree that we can all become complacent, even though everyone on this call is probably very experienced nanny. We can all become complacent, and just reminders like this of the hazards that are out there in the home is really great to be able to see and talk about. So thank you for that. And I think we answered everything in the chat box for now. And so what we're going to do is we're going to have a little 10-minute break, and we're going to come back at, it's 1:55 now, so we'll come back at 2:05, and then we will have our next speaker. There will be a question, and the roundtable at the end, someone asked, is also a question and answer for everyone. So we'll do that at the end. Okay, so we'll see you back here. And you might want to just leave your computer on and the video off, maybe the mute off. You can leave the video on if you want to, but stay muted. And I wouldn't log out just in case there's any problems logging back in. See you in 10 minutes. Hi, everyone. And we are going to get ready for our third speaker. And Amanda is going to introduce for us.
Hello again. All right, is my sound back on? Good? Okay, just checking. So Caroline Sakla is a former educator turned stay-at-home mom turned Little Explorers founder and leader. She is a mother to an almost 3-year-old son, a 1-year-old daughter, and a wife to her husband, Andrew. She has a bachelor's degree in communications and a master's degree in the arts of teaching. The reason behind the start of Little Explorers was a desire to foster a community for her family, a place where she would know that her child is safely receiving the social, physical, and cognitive development that his Little Explorer brain required. Speaking on learning with play, here is Caroline.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you guys for putting this together. It's been awesome to hear the former talks and everything that I've learned so far. It's amazing to be around educators and people who are volunteering to truly provide quality content to our caretakers. So, and for the caretakers that are attending, we know you didn't have to do this. So thank you. We appreciate it. It's amazing to see people that want to provide quality care for children. And we see those every day at Little Explorers, and it just amazes me. Thank you, Deborah, Sabrina, and Amanda for putting this together. And thank you for having me. So let's get started on some fun. And it's especially important during this quarantine to continue play, continue learning through play, because obviously kids are home, they're getting bored, but they're also not in preschool. They're not, or chances are, I mean, some daycares are open in Florida, but more likely than not, families have pulled them out. They're not receiving peer interaction, which is a big part of where the learning takes place. And if you're still offering your services during this time, there are still ways, and always there's going to be ways to provide playful learning opportunities. But there's also benefits. So today I want to kind of break down what I'm going to be talking about. I'm going to talk about what is playful learning. I know sometimes it sounds like it's straightforward, like playful learning, but I can explain a little bit of what it is and what it's not, and how to provide opportunities without having to be a teacher and create a whole curriculum and all that. And it's just pretty straightforward. And what's the benefits of it? So a big part of it is it minimizes separation anxiety, and also it allows for that, you know, screen-free time, which has shown to be extremely detrimental for development. But a big part of it is just you are going to be a big part of their learning process, because if you're spending a lot of time with these children, you are probably their #1 source of learning and hitting those developmental cues. So to start off, playful learning is actually guided play as well as free play together. So the big part is it's child-centered. It's not that you're coming in with a lesson plan. You're not like, okay, today we're going to learn this. Actually, you are following their cues. So whether this week they're really into dinosaurs, you're going to use that as a method of learning. So it's very focused on what their interests are. It's also very constructivist. So I know it's an education word and it might be like, what is that? Constructivist is just a simple way of saying, or a complicated way of saying simply, that they're experiencing things and reflecting on experiences around the world, and that's how they learn. So they actually have to like do something in order to learn. It's not just you teach them by using words, which is honestly not just how children learn, but adults as well. Object play, so there has to be physical content that they're touching and feeling to play. Playing pretend is big with playful learning, and rough and tumble. That helps them a lot get their motor skills going and their physical development reached. So it has to, of course, be fun, flexible, active, and voluntary, which is a little hard sometimes when it comes to kids, because we are the guide and sometimes they don't feel like it. They might feel like watching TV if that's what they're used to. And then it's hard to kind of break out of the tradition of those activities that they're used to. It also involves toys in which a child can interact to gain knowledge. So it's not just toys that kind of, how do I explain this? So toys that are not specifically telling a child, because some toys are actually opposed to playful learning, if that makes sense. So if a toy is very direct in the way it plays, so all it has is like 3 compartments and like, okay, just, you know, press this button, it says hi, press this button, it says bye. And like, you know, it doesn't have open-ended imaginative play incorporated in it, like blocks. Blocks are very simple, but there are an enormous amount of play with them, amount of ways to play with them. Whether it's counting, whether it's organizing them in a shape, whether it's organizing them into letters or numbers, they are so manipulative. But if a toy is not, it's going to kind of go against what you're trying to do. It's going to make that child let the toy tell them how to play. Characters are sometimes harder because kids want to mimic exactly what the movie says. They actually will tell you, they'll correct you. They'll say, that's not how you play, right? They'll say, no, that's not how she sings, or that's not how she, and then you're really just kind of forced to go with the dialogue that the movie's already set for them. And that kind of takes away from the imagination. You can obviously encourage out of that, like, but it's harder when they already had a dialogue that's in their head based on that toy. It's exact opposite from didactic instruction, which is teacher-paced. So if you come with like a curriculum and you say, okay, today we're going to learn so and so and so, and this is how we're going to learn it, that will really, that might cause almost like a tantrum, to be honest, because children are how do I say, like, they're easy to work with when they're given choices, when they're given like, okay, you tell me what you want. Let's go ahead and follow your lead today. But obviously it has to be guided. So it's almost like, I don't want to call it sneaky, but it is a little sneaky because you're letting them tell you their interests, but you are also following, and I'll show you the resources. You're also following like the CDC's recommendation for different milestones. I'll show you, there's an amazing PDF file that they've created that kind of shows you what are the different milestones that children need to reach by the age of 4. And if you know that, that's going to help you a little bit be like, okay, so we need to somehow work about colors. And if you go in that today, like today, you're watching a child and you're like, okay, I think I'm going to cover colors. That's a big enough and generic enough concept that it doesn't actually mean that it's teacher-centered. It's still absolutely child-centered because you didn't say how you're going to teach it. So if they're starting to play with like Legos, great. Have you thought about categorizing them? Did you want to organize them? No? Okay, think of another idea. Could we maybe see if we could match a toy that is the same color and maybe draw it out with the Legos? That would be cool. Like if we build the Legos to look like a teddy bear that's this color. So you're just suggesting. And if they're not picking up on what you're laying down, don't even worry about it because they're still learning by playing the Legos. But it's just thinking about all the vocabulary that you could use. So if it's not color, could you say things like, which block is bigger? Which one is the biggest block? Could you find the biggest block? And then you can even incorporate it for older kids, talking about volume, talking about surface area, it's just whatever they are choosing for the method of learning makes it playful learning because it's, again, student or child centered. They are the one choosing the materials. That doesn't mean you couldn't come with your own materials. You just can't have it be, here are the materials and here's how we're gonna use the materials. Here's what I mean by that. So for example, sensory bins are really easy and big way to do playful learning, like a easy method. So for example, you pick a couple bases. Base is something that would create tactile experience for the child. So a base could be rice, a base could be dried beans, a base could be pasta, a base could be shredded paper, like anything that just creates that texture in a different feel. And then you can add different things like stones or marbles and obviously please be aware of choking hazards in children. Different ages will play differently. So, but like how could that help them? While they're playing with that, if you add letters and then make like a seek and find. Okay, did you just find the letters? They will do it before you even say it. Like if you put the big tub with a bunch of different things and then just focus today, the base is gonna be there and then we're gonna add just letters. Tomorrow we're gonna add, maybe not tomorrow, after a week, you're gonna add numbers. And now they're just finding the numbers in there. And when they find it, just encourage them to say what they found. Oh, you found the number 3. That's so exciting. And it's going to literally be any age because even if they're 8, now you can make it about addition. Okay, let's find 2 numbers and see if we can add them. When you find, so they're still playing. They're still having so much fun touching the sensory bin. And now they're doing a math equation. This shouldn't stop even if they're like in high school. A lot of students are actually extremely tactile focused. It bothers them when they're sitting down in a chair and can't touch anything, can't, play with their fingers. Even some teachers get annoyed because I crack my fingers all the time. yeah, it's annoying, but that gets me through it. And students should be able to do that too. I know I'm getting off a little bit, but what I'm trying to say is like every child learns differently. And if you could find what the child that you're with interest is and how they're learning, you can make playful learning so fun for both of you. And then they'll accept it a lot more. And that's how it brings that separation anxiety down, is if they're so distracted throughout the day, they don't have a moment to even ask where their family is. If they're continually seeing you as the source of learning, because believe it or not, whether kids pretend like they like learning or not, their brain seeks it, it needs it, it's like fueled for it. They're born to learn. So the more that you become that source for them, the source of newness and curiosity, that every time you're there, they're learning something new. It doesn't have to be huge. It doesn't have to be like a full-blown lesson. It's just, what are we gonna do today? Like, it's just that excitement. That's what's gonna decrease separation anxiety for you, and tantrums in general, because again, you're not coming in with a lesson plan. You're just like, they're gonna help you guide the day. Playful learning is not to be confused with Montessori. Not that they do overlap for sure, but Montessori tends to have a lot more curriculum based. So they come with lessons, and for example, it calls their kids play work, and it's very organized, if this makes sense. Yes, it's absolutely child-centered and it's amazing, but it works best if you're, for example, watching them every single day and you become like their teacher. But if it's not every single day, it might, and that's why most Montessori schools don't do part-time. I know you might know of some, but like the top Montessori schools do not. It has to be every day because it is very curriculum, like structured based. Some ideas, and I wasn't sure, I did mention screen time, and I wanted to know if you, not wanted to know, but I wanted to let you know that the American Academy of Pediatrics recommends less than 1 hour of TV, and I have to admit that this has been the hardest thing to stick to during this quarantine, almost like wanting to twitch, because it's just, I mean, imagine like my child is used to being at an indoor play area every day of their life with just giant play, you know, like just like this massive play area, like go and do whatever you want. Our house is not, I mean, I was listening to the speaker before me, and my house is not prepped for my children to be in there, like, you know, because we're never there. So I need to definitely go and baby-proof everything so much more. But I definitely, it's harder to stick to that less than 1 hour of screen time, but there's just so much research that really does show how detrimental screen time is. So that's another thing, that if you come into the picture and that's what the child is used to, I know you're gonna struggle a little bit trying to come out of that, but it's gonna do you a favor, because also screen time creates major tantrums because of almost like an addiction. Like, I don't know how to, like, a child could actually get addicted because of how much they're used to TV. When you take that away all of a sudden, and that's why it has to be like decreased gradually. It can't just be pulled away. It has to definitely be decreased gradually and be replaced by something that is seemingly to them very fun. So some options to playful learning, or some examples of playful learning that I thought were really fun. I wanted to share my screen. And if you see here, I pulled up a real quick checklist from the CDC, and I'll put this in the chat, but it kind of organizes the different developmental milestones for each category of age. So it helps really a caregiver identify what I need to focus on, or what signs I need to see, because you guys are also on the front lines to seeing whether a child may need to see a doctor because they're behind on certain milestones. again, every child is different. This is the extreme sense, like, okay, if by this age they are not doing this, they should contact a doctor to see if they need assistance, therapy, whatever it is that they may need. So why would this help? This can guide you in creating activities. So for example, by age 3, you know, you want to make sure that they are playing make-believe with dolls, animals, and people. So, you know, as long as you have an opportunity to make believe that day, whether you set up a little town and, you know, you discuss all the different workers in there, it will help with that. I wanted to show some examples of the sensory bin. This is on our website. We offer a free blog for playful learning activities. So if you're ever like, okay, I really don't know what you mean by playful learning activities, or can I just have ideas? I know what you mean, but creativity is like, you know, hard sometimes. You're more than welcome to join our, or just like go to our website. It's littleexplorersflorida.com, and you're gonna see in our blog. So this is a sensory bin. This is rainbow rice. So it's colored rice, and it's pretty easy to do, and actually might be fun for you to have the child be involved in it, in playing or creating, making it if they're old enough. And then again, when you use their colorful rice, it's just a way to get them to use their tactile and keep their interest and touch and feel things. But the main learning activity would be whatever you put in there. So let me, trying to go back to stop sharing. There we go. All right. So some content that you know, if you want to keep it generic in the sense of choosing things like, what are we going to cover? We're going to cover either color, numbers, shapes, letters, animals, space, the body, family. Obviously, there's content outside of that, a lot of it. It's not just those are the only categories. You could even go inside of animals and categorize it by ocean animals, farm animals. You know, you could literally break it down. Reptiles, dinosaurs. It really depends on the age of the child. But if you make it easier for yourself, where you like say, okay, I'm gonna maybe I'm with them for a year. I'm gonna break this to 2 weeks content. Every 2 weeks, we're gonna do the same content. You're gonna have 3 overarching contents. You're gonna have colors, numbers, and letters be overarching on every single content, but you can have those also be their own, where you're more focused on not just the abstract, but like, or not just the actual meaning of like, sorry, the word is not coming to my brain, but like teaching numbers, there's recognition of the actual numbers, like the number 1 and the number 2, but there's also like the meaning of each number and making sure that they can count 2 items. When they see the number 2, they understand that if I see 2 items, that triggers the number 2 to me. So what I'm saying is colors, numbers, and letters overarch different themes. So if you're gonna do animals, you can count with animals. You can talk about the colors of different animals, and you could definitely talk about how to spell the word of it, like the actual word animal. So those always will overarch any theme that you pick, and you can make the themes very specific. And if you do come with a theme, the playful learning can come from the child, as long as you kind of know that throughout these next 2 weeks, I want to make sure that the vocabulary of a farm comes out. So whether you talk as simple as like the cow goes moo to like little kids, or like the process of milking a cow, or how do farmers work in the planting, and maybe do sensory bin with dried corn and have them discuss seeds and planting and things like that. It's almost like you're opening an opportunity for discussion that might not happen at the house, because if people think like, okay, we're not at a farm, how can I talk about all these farm things? Maybe I can show them a video of a farm, or maybe I can show them, read a book. Those are great. I'm not saying that we will never use those means, but children learn best at play. So if they're actually playing with the content, this is your opportunity to feed knowledge. Oh, you're playing with the rice? Let me talk to you about where does rice grow, or like how do we actually come about to having rice on our table? Let me tell you the process. They are listening. Even if they're just like mesmerized and like touching and feeling, they're 100% learning and listening from what you're saying. When they're not listening is when they're watching a video and you're trying to teach them at the same time. Why? And if you're like wondering what the difference is, videos are usually at 3 seconds per image. So they're literally extremely high stimulation. So they're just changing every 3 seconds. Your brain, it takes a lot more work to process that speed. If they're playing with the tactile, their whole 5 senses, first of all, are engaged. Okay, they're smelling what they're playing with. Maybe it's coffee grains, because that's really fun to play with. Again, you're talking about kids that are not gonna like shove things in their mouth because you might not want them shoving coffee in their mouth. But if they're playing with the coffee and they're smelling it and they're touching it, okay, and maybe if it's like decaf grains, like sometimes I let my kids play with decaf grains, and they just kind of like put it in their mouth to like feel the texture. I'm not as worried about it as much. But what I'm saying is just like their whole senses, and then they're listening. And then you're engaging their hearing and talking about coffee and which country is it made of. And if you're like, why does a 3-year-old care? They do, because of it's new. It's so new that they're looking at you like, wow, how do you know all this stuff? Just like they're so interested about cars. If you just throw a whole bunch of Hot Wheels in that coffee grain and then make the lesson about coffee, that's okay too. Like, don't make it feel like it's manipulation, but I mean, it's an opportunity to discuss a different topic, but using their interest. I did want to show you one more website that I'm a big fan of. So let me share my screen one more time. And then I will show you, well, while I'm on this page, let me go ahead and show you one more playful learning activity that I find is easy to turn into anything. So I hope that you see that sensory bin can literally be about any topic, anytime, a million different kinds of bases as well. Excuse my internet and how slow it is. Okay, so nature faces. It doesn't have to be a nature face, but that's a really cute little, a little girl did that. But if you collect, and this is one of our leaders, she's a kindergarten teacher that put this together with her daughter. They went on a nature walk and they collected various different colors and shapes. And this is when you get to talk about the different colors, different textures, different sizes. You could talk about, you could still talk about letters if you go on an alphabet hunt. Can you find something that starts with the letter A? Can you find something that starts with the letter B? And once you have a variety of different items with different textures and sizes, you can absolutely create anything, from a nature face to a nature alphabet, where you literally use the branches maybe or sticks to create the alphabet. You can go on a nature counting activity where they have to find 1 of this thing and 2 of this thing and 3 of this thing. You can really cover all the different themes that I was mentioning with that nature walk and making it fun. And again, it's their guidance. It's guided by the student or the child. I'm trying to also see if I saw questions. I was like, oh wait, I'm missing questions, but okay, so I saw it's per day or per week, the 1 hour. Maybe I'll go with that. I'll go through these during question time, actually. Sorry. I know that I'm almost out of time, so I wanted to make sure that I covered the last bit here. I'm going to go back to screen time for a second and why it's detrimental. That there's a lot of developmental cues that happen with the child through face-to-face engagement, whether they're literally learning while you're talking how to move their mouth. That they cannot see because in the screen, it's not just one person talking. Now, obviously, screen time can be different. Screen time can also, like, not to say that it should increase from one hour a day. It shouldn't increase from that, but if it is 1 hour a day, you could also pick better quality screen time. So things to look out for is how long is each image changing? Does it take longer to change? Then, like, for example, right now, you guys are watching me. This might not be considered, this might be the most optimal screen time because nothing is changing. It's just me. I'm not changing, which might be why it's a little boring. But like what I'm saying is that's like a person reading a book, which you could also find on Little Explorers, Florida.com. We have music and movement classes, which is the screen never changes. It's just Miss Mallory hosting a music class and using different instruments. So if the child is able to stand up and interact with the screen, so they're grabbing their own instruments and they're playing along, now you're engaging their physical development, now you're engaging their tactile, now you're engaging their brain. They're not just passively receiving information, and you're also minimizing how much stimulation they're getting because the screen is not changing so much. So yes, it's okay to have 1 hour or less a day. Absolutely, there's good screen time or better option screen time versus screen time that would just numb the child. And that will create a harder time to get off the screen. It will create a major tantrum to get off the screen. All right, so I would hope that everybody has always been doing that, but now it has a name. Everybody's been experienced playful learning, I'm sure, but like now it has a little bit more of a name. So I'm excited to hear your questions and go through them a little bit and answer some of them. Sabrina or Deborah, did you guys want to chime in for anything?
You're at time, you're good to go. So yeah, start reading those questions.
All right. I'm going to go back to where I started. What about special needs kids? Would it be the same like a schedule? It's not necessarily like a schedule, but a schedule will absolutely help. And I can actually send, I believe I can send a picture here. We did generate a schedule that could be very generic, but it helps you, not the child necessarily. The child is not really aware of time as much as we are, but it will help you kind of guide the day. Special needs kids absolutely, if not more than like regular children, need playful learning and need to engage all their senses, because more than likely one of their senses is lacking, is disabled in the sense. So they need to engage a variety of different senses and figure out which sense is actually their most prominent and learn best with. I have always encouraged sensory play. That's awesome. It's really important. All right. Are there any resources that you could recommend with coming up with different types of creative play? I'm somewhat creative, but could definitely use more ideas. Absolutely, there's gonna be blogs. I'm a big Instagram follower and Pinterest user. All you need to do is write the age of your child and kind of like maybe guide the theme that you've chosen for your kid to make the search a little bit easier. And then there's activities, like amazing resources. That's what I love about the internet. I definitely actually do not create much on my own. Even as an educator with a master's degree, there's no reason to reinvent the wheel. How can I make a curriculum or weekly lesson plan for a 3-year-old that I can use? So absolutely, if you use the CDC's recommendations for milestones, which will help you just know what they're supposed to learn. The other website that I want you guys to write down, or I'll write it down right now, is pathways.org. I want to make sure that's the correct. Yes, this is really also good for listing out the milestones, but it also provides activities, daily activities for learning, whether it's as young as like a 3-year-old and promoting turning them over and making sure they know how to turn, to activities for a 1-year-old to do color recognition. So it's really, and it's free. It's just amazing. I'm sorry, I want to make sure I'm going back. I have these current printed out beside me for the clarity. I'm starting with the screen time. Yeah, the screen time is 1 per day. I mean, 1 per week would be amazing, but it's hard in these times. What's the best you're on? I can't zoom in. So yeah, our website is littleexplorersflorida.com. Infants, what about ideas for infants? What is the best resource for learning activities for infants? So infants, just make sure that the item is not choking hazard. So use your Lego pieces that are giant, like the ginormous Lego pieces. And even if they can't connect the pieces, just even mention like having them grab for the red. And you'd be surprised, children as early as 1 can know their colors. Not that they're supposed to, but they can know their colors, they just can't say them. So for example, if you've constantly, just like they know when they point at you, your mom, or not you, but like their mom, when they point at their mom and they like finally say mama, mama, they've known who their mom was way before that, before they could say mama. They might not understand all the concepts of what mom is, whatever, but like, again, just like if you repeat this idea of the colors are in front of them and grab for red, grab for red, grab for red, in repetition, they will finally grab for the correct color. They just might not know how to say it. And again, you can use large pom-poms. You can make it out of yarn, like huge pom-poms that they could just kind of like touch and feel. And honestly, I use Pinterest for all the fun activities. And you can find like a giant list of all the activities for infants. Yeah, slime is amazing. I just don't like cleaning it, that's for sure. Yeah, I'll share all the sites at the end. Ideas for preteens and sensory, screen time is struggling. So again, sensory activities for teens is still huge. I heard somebody mention slime. Slime is huge with teens, but also creating their own like bracelets, but making it an opportunity to talk about, or geometric shapes. If they use elastic bands, there's like there's these boards, excuse my like lack of knowledge of what they're called, but like if they, they create different geometric shapes with elastic bands. So there is definitely a lot of sensory activities. You would have to kind of like research it, but the internet is full of it. All right, well, that's all the questions that I see. Thank you guys so much. And if you want to just kind of follow us on our Facebook page, Little Explorers Palm Harbor, or Little Explorers Indian Rocks, or on our Instagram. We definitely share a lot of ideas for sensory bins. And a lot of our sensory bins that we sell are actually easy to make at home as well. They're just, might be hard during this time because it's not easy to go out to the stores. All right. Thank you guys so much for having me.
Thank you. And Kara, I wanted to jump on because I saw your question where you said, where do we go to find ideas on Instagram? If you look up the hashtag sensory bins or sensory ideas or sensory projects, everything that's on Instagram that they've posted will bring that up that had that hashtag on it. So that's how to search it on Instagram.
Thank you, Caroline. That was great. Really some great tips, ideas. I love the playful learning concept that you have. And if anyone didn't get it, Little Explorers is located on 19 and Alderman Road in Palm Harbor. I don't believe she's open right now because of COVID-19, but when she is open again, she does playful classes for all ages, little ones, toddlers. I'm not sure what age she goes up until, but it's till 6. So it's really a fun place. So I did want to ask you that one site that you mentioned, it's pathways.org for the activities.
So pathways.org is the last, I just copy pasted all the links that I had set up.
Oh, okay. I see it.
It's
Okay,
the last
got
one
it.
right there. Yeah. And it
Perfect.
will have the activities and videos too, some videos that you could kind of watch.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Carolyn.
You're very welcome.
Okay, so we are ready for our last speaker, and I am going to introduce him. The next speaker is Mr. James Yee, Jr. James is a music teacher at Gulf Trace Elementary School. This is his 2nd year of teaching, and he loves teaching piano, guitar, vocals to his students. He has sung and played music for 7 years now, and he strongly believes that music is a great outlet to develop a deep emotional understanding, especially during difficult times. Music is the universal language, and many people that listen or play can build communities and friendships that last a lifetime. Spreading a love of music is his ultimate goal. He wants children to be exposed to all avenues of music because, as in life, they are going to be exposed to different things, and for James, music was a way to help him understand. Some benefits of learning music allows children to have enhanced motor skills and develop more critical thinking abilities, all of which are fun to learn too. Okay, James, we're ready for you.
All right, so as she said, my name is Mr. James Yee. I've been teaching now for 2 years at the elementary school. I've been having a lot of fun with it. And as just for some tidbits about my thing, I also did babysitting for about 2 years while I was in college, and I worked for preschool as well. So I've worked with ages from about 3 to about 13, and then with the elementary school, same exact thing. So I have a little bit of a wide range with all the kids that I've worked with, which is great. And for some fun tidbit, she said, Miss Deborah said that I did music for about 7 years. I taught myself piano and guitar for 4 to 5 until I had a teacher, and then I studied vocal music when I got to college. So now I will switch it over to the presentation. So my presentation is short, but it's also just a lot of talking with this. Oh gosh, how do I start this? There we go, start from the current slide. So my presentation is about how the arts impact children. So as I said, some little information. It's my name. I'm a teacher. I play a lot of different instruments as well, which is very, very helpful. Now we go to some personal things, my work experience with my family and as a kid. So I'll start with as a kid. As a kid, I wasn't actually introduced into music. Everybody has that notion of if you're pregnant and you listen to music, it helps your kid get smarter. There is that concept, and it's a very interesting concept that I love to hear every single time. But it's helpful because it's partially true, but also not. So with a couple of the links that I actually have a couple links that are listed in my presentation, but as well as with child development with this kind of thing. So going to being a babysitter, I babysat a couple kids from about 8 to 10, as well as a couple kids that were 5 or 6. So the cool thing was for me is that I love being able to share music with students and being able to let them express themselves. Music and the arts allow people to dance, act, write, sing, and do a lot of different avenues. So when I was babysitting these kids, I brought my guitar. I was able to sing some songs. A lot of parents and kids love Disney music and some other songs that allow them to use letters and register certain things, especially from the last presentation listening. I'm going to go to the bingo song that everyone knows. It teaches kids how to learn their letters visually and orally. The big bingo song also shows that it's a dog, and so it gives them the visual representation of this dog. This is the dog. He's spelling his name. Oh, this letter is the letter B, and this is how it sounds. It also just gives them a chance to move around with their body with it as well. And it's always great to see when kids are able to share it with you. Working in the preschool as well, after the kids did the music time and stuff, going home to their parents like, I got to dance, I got to do something, I got to draw, I got to have some fun with my friends. It was one of those things that always was great for me to hear. And the smiles on their faces, as well as for their parents' faces, and the caretakers that pick them up too, is, oh, I got something to talk to them about, and now we can figure out any other activities we could do at home and do some just some fun to pass the time with it. And just like I was saying for my preschoolers, music time was also, for some of them, and especially in the area I was in, music was, the time for it was the only time they had fun. Yes, they got to have fun with their friends and they got to be outside, but music allowed them to do things that just let them feel more free and to express themselves. And it's one of those things that, especially in younger development, that I'm seeing in elementary school, that some kids don't really want to talk. They use different things to express themselves. Some do it in drawing, some doing it in speaking, some do it in dance movements, and they have little nuances that help you try to understand what's going in through their head and what's going on in their minds. With that, so to go along with it, the family aspect of this is that families, the nannies and the parents have such a big impact on their life of music and the arts, because if they're just doing it and not really getting any feedback from it, they're not going to want to continue. I'm also finding that talking to some families during this quarantine time as a teacher, a lot of kids are very, very bored. And so using little things of art projects, crafts, doing little mini plays like pretend, just like doing some pretend and doing some stories also helps them keep engaged, and to make sure that they're using their senses and they're being engaged with a lot of things. Ow, I just hit my desk. Sorry. And to go along with those experiences, some of them just really enjoy being able to share something with their families, especially now in this quarantine. There are a lot of parents that are working a lot and they're not home, and now that their kids are home, they don't know, they either have online schooling and they've got to do something to pass the time. And I know, listening and being called by parents too, sometimes it's very overwhelming, and they're looking at their computers and their iPads for so long that getting them a reason to not shut off, but to take a break is always a great thing. And music and art is such a great way to do something like that. Our school has also done Facebook Lives and stuff, where one of the art teachers actually had a thing they could do outside. They got chalk, they used tape, and they made sculptures and stuff outside. They drew. They were able to step outside of the house and not be so confined into a little area. And seeing those pictures and just them having fun with their families was such a great thing, because expressing yourself is something that is tough to do. And now in quarantine, we're all sort of in a little bubble, and trying to step out of that bubble for us to express is now just getting harder. But as time goes, it gets easier with it. So I know that the video didn't work, but this is a video from Music Science. It's about 4 to 5 minutes about it. I'll try not to go through it, because I know we've been having some problems with it, obviously. But as a idea behind this talks about how music is in other subjects, and science is a big thing. Sorry. This talks about the vibrations of how strings are made, and especially in kids' ears, it's one of those things that it registers with them. The video goes to talk about how when we're listening to something, it sounds really nice. It sounds happy. We have this internal sense that we're happy, like a happy song, like a fun chord. It makes you smile a little bit. And then when we hear something that we don't really like listening to, I can immediately imagine nails going on a chalkboard. No one really likes that sound. And you feel in your body such discomfort. And it's that vibration and that science that you're listening to with sound that triggers your brain to be, oh, this is a good sound, I want to listen to it, or I don't like this. This is hurting me on the inside. To go along with that, the link that I have is from the American Association of School Administrators. They actually brought it, I think they posted it last year in 2020 or 2019, but I'll pull some excerpts from it. And these are from actual administrators talking about it with each other of the arts are not just expressive and effective, like they're deeply cognitive. They develop essential thinking tools where it's pattern recognition and development, mental representation of what is observed and imagined, symbolic, allegorical, and metaphorical representations, as well as a careful observation of the world and abstraction from complexity. Especially with it, my students don't like when I do this, but you can find music in almost everything. The closest thing that's close to music subject-wise is math, because counting is a fundamental thing in music as well as in math. Adding, subtracting, knowing how many beats should be in this measure or how many beats of sound should be there. Music students also use geometry to remember fingers. So for college students and for people that are in band, knowing where their fingers should go on playing an instrument or how hard they have to blow into the instrument, like all those things cognitively they have to think about. And in little kids too, I do a lot of practice with rhythm sticks where they practice counting beats and counting numbers. Oh, how many beats should this be? What number is this? In their head, they're thinking of it as, oh, I'm counting. I get to have fun, I'm hitting something, and I get to mess around with it. But when they switch over, it's, oh, this is how many that should be. This is where I should hit. This is where I should be silent. This is where how long the song goes. And this is where I need to think a little harder. I made a mistake. Where did I make the mistake? And it gives them that cognitive ability to really think about it and do critical thinking too. It's like, oh, I made a mistake. Where is my mistake? Where did I mess up? Oh, I messed up over here. So how do I fix it? And it gives, and especially for my fifth graders, when they know they made a mistake, they go, wait, where was it? It's right there. How can I fix it so I don't make that mistake a second time? And along with it, it helps out with a lot of different subjects. Writing, I use music as writing as well, which is very funny with it. Being able to write in music also helps with writing in their classes when they have to do writing examples and stuff too. Along with it, I go with the writing thing because in preschool, a lot of kids don't know letters and they're learning their letters too. So when they're doing it, this is where the arts aspect comes in. They're drawing the letter. This is what the letter A looks like. They're drawing the letter A or they're drawing the letter B. And in their head, they're figuring out, oh, this is the capital letter A. This is the capital letter B. I get to draw this. And you can add so much fun to it. Like, especially when I was learning cursive, I wasn't told I was learning cursive in elementary school. I was like, oh, I get to draw a fancy letter A. I get to be a little bit fancy with the letters. And some people can read it and some people can't. But it was that idea in my head that this A has a little tail. And I can connect all the letters together to do a little drawing. And that was in my mind was, so it just added some extra fun for me. Now, just like in the other, listening to all the presentations, there's a research study that actually shows that infants before their first birthday, so about probably 8 to 9 months after they're born, they can actually differentiate between two different tones of music. If you play something nice, they'll hear it and like, oh. And when you play something different, they're like, ah, that's different. So in their head, it actually changes. There's also neural scans of people's brains where there are certain space spots in the brain that can only be affected by listening to music or doing something physical. Like certain things in your brain allow endorphins to be happy, or the ability to listen to a song and be, oh, that's sad. I should feel sad because it reminds me of something, and it triggers that emotion in your head that flows through and just makes you, it's just one of those things that you listen to it, you've had an experience and you remember it, and music allows that to happen for that. Now, on my other link, that one is a blog post. It talks about early child development. As I said, we as teachers, as well as you guys, have such a impact on kids, especially as an early age and when they grow up too, that anything that you do sticks in their mind, whether it be positive or negative. The great thing is that with music, as well as art and other things, it never can be really negative. Obviously, when we're listening to some of the songs now, some of the lyrics are very, very concerning, especially on how young some of the songs that the kids are listening to. That's not a good song to listen to, but they listen to it anyway. And that's always a big concern with that. But a takeaway from that is when kids are listening to songs that have listened to the lyrics, it allows them to actually listen to a story, especially if you look at older music in about the 1990s and the 80s and the 50s, where some of the songs told a story about angst. Looking at those lyrics, you're concerned of why they're actually lyrics, but you get to listen and see, oh, they were talking about this. They were talking about this moment of time. And it gives you a little bit of clarity because you're like, oh, I want to learn more about this. Or this song came out during this period. And the reason I bring that up is because while learning about music history, when you look at the time frame of the Renaissance period, that was a time when art, poetry, dramas, operas, music was all renewed because they had just come out of the Dark Ages. And listening to some of those songs, they're very happy. They try to tell a story of in a dark place they came from, but then out come this great celebratory music of things being new and things that people trying out different things. And it's just one of those ideas that's great with, it's great because it gives you a realization of now with some of the stuff that's happening now, what songs will come out? What songs will come out after this entire quarantine? There will probably be a lot of songs that will joke about this. And we have definitely, I know I've personally seen a lot of news that joke about this and listening, and it'll be funny talking about it with later generations, like, oh, this song came out at this time. Why? Because of quarantine. And that's going to be the only thing that we're going to be able to say with that. To also tag on to what Ms. Deborah said about, for me, music is a universal language. I take it more of a to heart thing too. As a kid, it was one of the things that brought me closer to friends and family, and it allowed me to share my interests and be more a parent in the world, I guess. Now, not many people know the name of the song of the orchestra piece, but the piece is called Rossini's William Tell Overture. Many people know it as the song of the Running Horses. It's the ba-da-dum, 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 bum, bum, ba-da-dum, ba-da-dum, bum, 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 bum. Everybody knows the song, but they don't know what it's called. But somewhere in your mind, you've heard this, like, oh, I've heard this in a TV show. Oh, I saw this in a movie. Those little things allow you to connect with other people in the world. I used to have a kid that didn't know English. And it was tough because I also didn't know how to speak their language, and we didn't have a translator at the time. But I played the song, and his classmates, like students' classmates, were able to dance along with the song and let him and show him that he could have a fun time, even though he didn't know what I was saying. The music allowed him to understand that this is a happy song they get to dance with, and they get to do so many different things, and allow them to express how they're feeling, because music is very freeing, as well as art and dramas. It allows you to put yourself in a place where you probably wouldn't be, but it allows you to experience something completely new. That's where the art goes into this section of the expression and the drawing part. And it was one of those things that my sister and I enjoyed talking about. These are my 2 links that I have at the end of my little, these are my resources that I use for it. And there's also obviously more than one resource to go with it. And so let me do this, I think. Okay, so that's the fun of that. Now the great thing is, along with it is, yes, I was gonna go into that too. A lot of people don't think about it, but there's also different types of therapy. There's music therapy, there's physical therapy as well. So it allows people to really release their body. And I'm pretty sure for me as well, being stuck home in an enclosed space, I get very stir crazy. And I'm sure for some people too, music allows us to relax and go into a little, not a euphoric state, but just in a way I can calm down, I can relax, or take a bath. Take a bath, listen to music, and you just fall, and obviously not to fall asleep while listening to the music, but it just brings so much of a relaxing state that you're not so worried about all the things that are happening. And it gives that sense of, I can take a breath, breathe in, breathe out, and just relax with it. It's a thing that I've been doing a lot myself, and a couple of my students have been doing it too. Oh, okay. I think I'm good with time, right? Okay with it, ish?
Yes, you still have 10 minutes, and there's a question in the chat box.
Okay.
Recommendation of any website to teach kids math with music.
Math with music. I know for me, when I try to do math with music, off the top of my head, I can't think of any websites. I could probably research a little bit more with it. But I know when I teach my students beats, like a quarter note is 1, half note is 2. Like, I try to incorporate in with it, like, oh, so I have 4 quarter notes. 1 quarter note is 1, and I have 4 of them. So it's 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1. And that also allows you to give a visual representation as well. And, it's like, I clap this many times, or how many times do I clap this entire song? Like, it allows them it gives you the visual, and they can also make their own too, which is also a great thing for them too. Like, I had with some of my students, I allowed them to write on a whiteboard, and because of the whiteboard, they're like, so this is a quarter note. How many times do I play it? How many things do I do this and stuff? Instead of, you're right, you can do that. Oh, that's right. There is that backwards counting songs too. That's also a really great thing. And especially if you're starting from 100, that will keep them entertained for a good while. Now, the good thing as well is that there's also crafts and stuff you can do with your kids that also incorporate with music. Just like in the last presentation where she was talking about the sensory boxes. With those sensory boxes, you can actually make shakers and other things too. I actually pulled up something. Let me share my screen really quick. I actually pulled up, that's not what I wanted. These, so homemade instruments you can make. So if you have like plastic straws, you can cut them. You can actually make little rain sticks, or not rain sticks, like stinging straws, where they have to blow into them and it changes the notes. Obviously, you got to be careful because you don't want the straw to be sharp, but you can do that as well as do pan flutes, even like little thumbtack stuff, like a little piano, like a thumbtack piano is really cool. Wrist bracelets, pan flutes. You can even make like a little gong at home, like anything that you can find. I know Miss Sabrina was watching last night because I did Facebook Live, but I have a little box, excuse me, that you can use, and it's actually just a cardboard box. It's broken up, obviously, but you can use rubber bands and wrap it around, and when you play it, it actually makes sound, which also goes along with the signs of, oh, vibration. If I play the string or the rubber band, it makes a sound. If I stretch it, what changes? Does it get higher? Does it get lower? It allows them to especially use that cognitive thought of thinking with it too. And it allows them to have that. Using ING. That's awesome. After school stuff. Yes, detox. It's especially looking at it like from an elementary teacher standpoint too, a lot of the, especially in the area, like this amount of work that they're doing is very rigorous. Like the district for Pasco, there was so much math that they had to do. Some students were taking about 2 to 3 hours just doing one subject when they had to finish reading and science and social studies. And it really does give a way to express themselves with things too. Paper towel rolls, that also gives that thing where you can poke holes in the paper towel roll, put a little like piece of paper at the end, wrap it around, put a rubber band on it, and you can make them think it's like a flute or something to give an idea. Like there's even this where'd it go? Rainbow shakers, they get to paint. They could paint something with this. Or a water pipe trombone where you have like those funnels. People have funnels, like those little funnels. You can use it and put it together, and you can blow into like a straw or something and change how far it is to change the sound. And I can put the link on the I can send this link out as well, but there are about 52 different little things that they can do and build, like hand drums. There's like a little guitar they can build, like a tiny mini harp. You can also do, this is one I really like, the Pringles cans. If you have tiny little Pringles cans, you can put them all together and make like a little drum set for them, and it's great. And paper. There are people that have paper. Roll up the paper, have them make it into a little horn, tape it. They can do so much with it. And this is where I was talking about, the sound jars. Little things that they can put in themselves, buttons, those Mancala beads. I don't know, I guess I would call them Mancala beads, but just hearing it and them seeing it and allowing them to, especially in those sound jars, do I want a different sound? Do I want a specific color in there? Especially like being very cognitive about it. Just don't use toilet paper rolls. Could be a sensitive issue. That's also very true. Little bracelets. Obviously, being careful with these homemade bells. Those might be a little concerning because those look like glasses. Noisemakers. Like there's a lot of things that you can find and do for them. And you could even, I know there's another website that I had before that you could make an outdoor concert. You put old pots and pans you don't use, you put it on the fence or something, and you let them just hit the pans outside with like wooden sticks, and they can do like a little drum session outside. And that allows them to, one, obviously get energy out of their body because they're stuck at home. They're either going to be jumping around, either sitting around doing homework or doing something, and that will give them a way to go outside in your backyard or something, or just step away and to detox. It's a really great thing with it too. And it will seem like that's also very true. Once they've expelled that energy, they usually want to go to sleep. It's a big thing with it. And there's also like always something you can do especially in music and arts. Like you can have them draw a picture of their school or a picture of their teachers and take a picture and send it to the teacher, and that expresses them too. And especially with the music curriculum that I know that we're doing in Pasco, one of the assignments talks about a story that they get to follow along. It's called the Lion Hunt, where you leave your house and you're going to try and find a lion. You're going through, put in your imagination, you're going through some tall leaves or tall grass. You got to switch them around, give some physical activity with it, and then you listen to the song and you listen to the story, and most of the time they're very engaged with it, which is always really great. And then at the end, they go into a dark cave, and you're like, oh, it's scary. You find a lion, you got to run back home, and you got to go through all those tribulations, going across the river, going through the tall grass, having to swim. And you could add so many things to it, but it would obviously allow you to be not in control, but guide it where they expel more energy instead of doing doing the basis of it. And it gives more of a chance to let you have some fun too, because you can do it along with your kid or with the kid you're watching. And you could even obviously it's an idea, but if they have a nice living room, you could put chairs around the living room. It's like, oh, we're going through a pathway, we're going this way, we're doing this at this point. And then you can also ask them, what do you want to do at this point? Oh, we can do this. And it gives them that sense of they're creating something that you can share, and just making that big connection with each other. And that's what music really is. You're connecting yourself with another person in something that you both like, or something you can both enjoy. Like, it allows you to do a lot of things, especially for high school and middle school. Those kids that are in band, especially in college, when they leave those classes, when they graduate, they still know those same people that are in band and in choir. Like, it gives them a sense of community and another home away from home. And that was a big thing that I know for me personally, I enjoyed a lot once I got to college and high school, when I had a choir, because when things were going well, you could also tell them. Instruments. Safe instruments. I would go with if there's any like old boxes, like tiny boxes, you can put the little sensory boxes and stuff. If you have, there was another one that was up here. I'm still sharing the screen with it. I realized that too. But where to go? You can actually use, if you have like, what are they called? Popsicle sticks. I think it was like one of the first couple ones. So like a popsicle stick harmonica, like this little thing here. Tapping feet also works too. Like having listened to the song and doing some physical activity. If you don't know, there's a YouTube channel called Go Noodle that has a lot of resources that is very movement heavy, call and response. Like a lot of my elementary kids, all the preschool kids love the Popsico song, because they get to see, they're talking to this person and they're doing a different thing with it. But obviously I'll do my best to still be here, but I think that is the end of my time with this. So thank you for letting me be on and talking. So
Thank you, James. That was really awesome. I love the tips on the homemade instruments. That was awesome. I'm sure a lot of us will be able to use that in different ways. We have some time for some more questions for James, if anyone has any more questions. Let's see what we got here. My 10-year-old I take care of is a TikTok kid who got me hooked, but I follow her to keep. What are your thoughts on TikTok?
So I'm very conflicted with it, because it's one of those things that is very conflicted as a kid, for kids. Head, shoulders, knees, and toes is a great thing. I'm very conflicted with it because a lot of my students also have it, and they have fun listening to the songs and doing the dance moves, but TikTok doesn't really look at the lyrics of the songs, especially with it. So for your own interest, making sure that you're just listening to what she's listening to be careful, because there are certain instances where it's not appropriate for them to watch, but even though they're on that app, obviously to please be careful with it, as in any social media thing that they're able to use, like on YouTube and other little things that they can do here and there. Like it's always to proceed with caution. I mean, it's great. It allows an array of different songs, but it's more of a be careful what they're doing and just be aware of what they're listening to with it, kind of thing.
Okay. I think that's it. I think that's all our questions. So thank you very much. And so next, and last but not least, is we're going to do, say, a roundtable Q&A. And I'm not sure which speakers are still on the call. I know that James is, and not sure who else is. Is anyone else still on the call? You can unmute yourself.
Petra and Karen are here as well.
Who?
Petra and Karen and James.
Oh, okay, awesome. So if you have any questions, you can either, if you want to raise your hand or check the reactions.
Yes, I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Hello,
Yelena.
this is Yelena. I work with the family for the past 2 years now, and the mom doesn't do anything. I mean, like nothing, no hobbies, no work. She sleeps till 11, 12. I work with the kids till 3, and then I leave. And then in the evening, she's just chilling with them at home, doing crafts, but she doesn't always do crafts. So she's a little, I guess she has a low self-esteem or something. When I came there, the older child was 2.5 years old, and because she didn't really work with him, like there was no speech activities or anything before he turned 2.5, his speech was delayed. Like I would come there, and if he wants something, he'll be like water, and then she'll be like, you want water? Yes. And that was his conversation with the mom, and she would give him water. So when I came there, I was pushing him with the speech, and he actually started saying the words, and he's bilingual, so he started saying the words in 2 languages. And I told her, I said, listen, he needs a speech therapist. I'm not saying that he is dumb or something, but he needs to work with the speech. And she said, no, I talked to my mom and my husband, and we all think that my child is smart and he doesn't need any speech therapist. So how do I explain to a parent when their child has some issues?
Are you directing this question to someone in particular, Yelena?
No, to whoever.
It is a tough question because it does come up quite often with nannies. If you notice something that you feel strongly about, one of the things that we always recommend is, and it sounds like you've already done it, but one of the things that we do recommend is to have regular family meetings with your family and yourself, and basically discuss updates on what's happening with the child and what's happening during the time that you're engaging with the child. And positives and negatives could come out at this meeting, but it is important to put it on the table and discuss it.
I did.
And
I did explain to her why they need a therapist. I said I can work with him, and whenever I will be like pushy to tell him like, say it again at least 3 times, some word. And of course child doesn't like it, and he would get irritated, and she would be like, Yelena, just stop.
have you discussed it with a therapist?
No, I mean, she doesn't take him anywhere but if just a regular doctor. And I don't know, she's just in denial. Her and her husband, like the second child is very talkative and she's much better in speech. Like she's at her age, however she needs to be right now. And I keep telling them that she's like that because we worked more with her on the speech, but they are still in denial. They're just saying she's just like out of ordinary child, that she's too smart for her age.
I
And
think
we
if you
literally
had, I think if you discuss the child's behavior with a professional therapist and you had some backing, possibly the family might, as time goes on, be interested in discussing further with you. It is a very sensitive subject. Anyone have any input? You can unmute.
So this is Petra. I am not, how would I say it? I'm not a speech pathologist or anything, but my daughter has attended speech because she has a mild dyslexia. And we found out later in life, but my daughter is not bilingual, but one of the things that they did ask me was if I was bilingual, because children can be speech delayed if they're bilingual. So
Right.
So that's one of the things. The other thing is because I have a master's of social work, I counseled a child who was 3 and they brought her to me thinking that they had to bring her to speech therapy. And she was suffering from a form of trauma that was neglect. And that was actually why she was nonverbal. So by the time we were actually done with the trauma, focused cognitive behavioral therapy, she was like fully speaking, like full sentences, bossing me around type of deal. I'm like, whoa, you know, so it, like I would look at both of those things, you know, and then, you know, from the nannying experience, I remember nannying a child, and the mom, it was also a second child, spoke a little later than the first one, and he would point. They had a huge closet full of toys, and everything in that closet was this. And if you did not pass him the right thing, he would like scream this, and cry. And I'm like, I have no freaking idea what this is, you know?
Right.
So I would start using the correct names for things little by little. Although the parent was very receptive and open to it, I told her she started addressing it too. So that was a little bit of a different situation.
Thank you. I guess my question is how to convince her to go to the speech therapist, because even though he's 4 now, he speaks English and Russian, but the speech is not how it's supposed to be. I know the speech, when you're bilingual, the speech is delayed, and I have experience with that, and my nephew was the same way, but I see the potential in this child. I know that he can do better, and if I just work more with him, it's gonna happen faster and better. But all she wants me to do in the mornings is just take them to the playgrounds. Like, she doesn't want me to really work with them. She's like, just go outside, and
You can work with
I
them
don't
in
have
the
the time to work with them.
Elena, if you want to contact the agency on Monday, we have a resource that we can give you that you can ask this question to, and they would be able to guide you in the best way of directing the parents for some help or advice.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And Kara Baker, you can unmute yourself and let us know who your question is for.
Okay, so this is just, I have a couple questions. It's just in general about the whole training overall. When I got the email, like the email about if I wanted to do the training or not, it stated that if you did it, it would make you a preferred nanny for Nannies Who Care. Well, when you say preferred nanny, explain that to me. Like, I mean, obviously I know what preference is, but preference in what with Nannies Who Care?
educated.
Sabrina, do you want to answer that question?
So there's some perks in being a preferred nanny within our network. And that just means that we know you very well. We trust you. We're confident in your capabilities. And we also know you've taken a training like this. If we ever have any special assignments or group events or anything that we need to send out that we need a specific nanny for, you would be one of the first ones that we contact. You'll also, I believe all of our nannies that have been with us for a while receive a shirt, a free shirt first. So that is something also you can expect. Along with this training, you'll also receive a certificate that you can add to your resume. So the preferred part of it is just that you're on a list that we keep within our network of trusted, confident nannies that we can use for special assignments.
Okay, awesome. And 2 more questions. The next question is, do we have to take this class each year to be able to keep like an active certificate that we can put on our resume, or do we just have to take it this once, or is it just optional for reminder?
We prefer all our nannies to come to training day every year, just because there's so much valuable information that you can learn from it. We do sometimes have small trainings throughout the year, but it's been a little difficult this year, of course, because of the virus. But we do have this event that we hold every year, and we try to keep the cost down when it is in person, because a couple of reasons. We want all of our nannies to be able to attend, as many as possible. We love seeing you. We love the networking and and the learning. It's a fun time. So we do encourage you to do it every year, and then you get a certificate each year as well, which you can put on your resume.
Okay, so if you say like I get a certificate after this one, like it expires after a year, and then you do another one and then you get another certificate?
You'll get a certificate for each training that you attend.
Okay. And just, I guess my last question is just the resources. When she was discussing the child restraint, I wasn't able like to zoom in on the PowerPoint, and all the websites that Jess provided, and then the website that James provided for the art and music. How will I receive that?
Follow-up email after this, where we are going to have all of the resources listed. We had a video issue, have all of those. We just have to put it together. So everyone should expect a follow-up email by tomorrow afternoon, I would say, so that we can make sure that you have all of the resources that were shared that we weren't able to see, and the ones that were already given.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Sabrina, I have a
Thank you.
follow-up question. Do you want me to post the links here in the chat, or will you be sending them out in your resource?
I'll probably send all speakers an email, so you can just hand over everything, or I can grab it from your PowerPoint. So we'll discuss after. I'll send you an email.
Hi, Cameron. I see you, Grace. How are you?
Let me see.
Cameron McLean. I've unmuted you. Are you there? I think we can hear you. Do you have a question? Okay. Anyone else? I don't see any other hands raised. Oh, wait. No, Kara already spoke. Wendy.
Yes, I have a quick question for Petra about the car seats. It's not a big issue right now, obviously, because we're not going anywhere, but I care for a 4-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 1.5-year-old now. And I have the 3 car seats in the back of my car. And the 1-year-old has just started outgrowing the infant seat. Do you have any recommendations of like a different seat? We've gotten new ones for the older 2. But I don't know if you have any recommendations of how to configure another convertible seat with the other 2.
Sure. So you mean like to fit them 3 in a row?
Yes.
So that is a typical challenge. Just let me ask you this. Are they from the same family that is providing the car seats, or are they just like different families and you buy the car seats?
They provide them, and they're two are sisters, and then the third one is a cousin.
Okay, I just wasn't sure how much control you had over the car seat buying situation.
Oh yeah, they'll listen to any recommendations that I make. So
sure. So there is a fairly pricey, well, convertible seat, which is Diano, Radian, or some of the Diano seats. A lot of those Diano seats are narrow profiled and they can fit 3 in a row. Also, there's like a Walmart, Costco Senior Next, and I can write both of them down here in the chat. Costco Senior Next that are narrow enough to fit 3 in a row. Now, if you do have already the 2 car seats, I would let's say go to Walmart and ask to bring out that Costco Senior Next, or just to test it in your vehicle. So I would probably sit it on the vehicle seat, because I remember there are certain vehicles like their Nissan Xterra has this big wheel well that goes into the back seat, and you really cannot fit the third seat on that vehicle seat. But I would just sit it on there and make sure like you can run the seatbelt through it. Now, if, based on the children's ages, it doesn't sound like anybody's going to be buckling themselves, but that would be an additional tip for anybody else who is transporting 3 children. Is like, if one of them is buckling, they have to be able to reach in between the seats with the seatbelt. So
yeah,
I would test it out. And yeah, go ahead.
I said the 4-year-old is in the middle, forward facing, then the other 2 are rear facing on the sides. So the 4-year-old, we have it's like one of those, I forget what brand it is, but like it converts into just a booster seat for the 4-year-old, and the 3-year-old, it was a Kleck, one of the Kleck Philo or whatever it is.
Flow, yeah.
But it doesn't seem like another Kleck will fit on that side where the infant one is now.
Yeah, I would probably test out the Diano, because it sounds like it's not a financial issue. I know for a fact they have the Diano Radian as low, like narrow all across. They have some seats that go out like that, like behind the back, to provide more room for the shoulder. So I would look for one that is narrow all across. I know for a fact the Radian is.
Okay.
Maybe it's Radian 3 or so. I'll try to Google it, because sometimes they change the models.
Okay. But thank you so much.
Sure, no problem.
Thanks.
Okay, we're going to come back to Cameron. I think she has her microphone on now.
Okay, hi Debbie. Sorry about that.
No
my first question, I have 2. The first one would be, what advice do you have about negotiating in the contracts, like with salary and paid time off, and things like that? And then the other question is, how would you bring up to the family that after this like coronavirus is gone, that you would like to take the baby out on outings? I know that's like a really touchy subject right now, but I would rather work for a family that would be open to that in the future when things start settling down.
Okay, regarding salary and PTO, are you already in a position and you want to negotiate this now, or what's happening?
No, I'm looking for a position right now,
Okay.
a full-time position.
Okay, so the rule is, of course, always you're going to be going on the interview, having your interview with the family, and basically just discussing the family's wants, needs, and the children. And then when you're called back for the second interview, is when the time when you'll discuss those things, like your benefits, salary, PTO. You definitely want to have that an understanding and a clear understanding of what your benefits are. We have a family nanny agreement that we provide. If I know you're in Miami right now. Are you in Miami, Cameron? I think you are. Anyway,
Yes, I am. I am in Miami. Sorry, it just
Okay.
kicked me out for some reason.
No problem. So if you're going through our agency, we have an agreement that we help the family prepare. That is a family nanny agreement between you and the family. Do you have an agency down there? If you do have an agency down there that's helping you, like ours, they should be providing that to you. If not, you can write up something and have a written document once you come to an agreement on that, and then it should be in writing so that you know exactly what your salary, your benefits are, and your job description.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. What was I'm sorry, you had 2 questions?
The second question was, how do you bring up to a family that you would like to do like activities out of the home, like
Yeah.
library time, but after the coronavirus is over, but still making sure that they know you're taking it seriously?
Right. So if you're interviewing with the family right now, during the time that the coronavirus is on, you want to definitely bring that up because you want to know the type of family that you're going to be working for. If it's important to you to be working for a family that you could take the children out on outings, because not every family wants that, definitely needs to be discussed on the interview. So you know that once the virus is passed, and the family is comfortable with it, which they may want to take baby steps with that, which is perfectly understandable, then you know that this is the type of family that you want to work for. But if right off the bat they tell you, oh no, we just want someone that will stay home with the baby and not go out at all, well then you know, well then that's not the right family for you, and you can move on to another interview.
Okay, thank you, Debbie.
You're welcome. Amanda, did you have your hand up?
Hi, I just wanted to jump in off of Kara's question about the certificate and yearly and if they expire. On the certificate in the past, I'm pretty sure they're going to do it the same way. It has the speaker and the course that you completed by subject topic, and every year they're different. So you can list all of them on your resume because they will always be different courses that you completed. So they're kind of like building blocks where you can put that you attended 2018, 19, 20, and they cover a range of different topics, which will be very important for a family with children that are pertinent to one topic, and then a different family can be, a different topic, but it will cover all of them, and it will have each topic and course that you completed. So they don't expire, but they'll all be different, and they'll just kind of cover each topic, if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you. That was extremely helpful.
Thank you, Amanda. And I see some babies and toddlers on the screen. I love that. And do we have any more questions? I don't see any hands raised unless I'm missing somebody. Shannon, you can unmute yourself.
Hi.
Hi.
I have a question for Petra. It doesn't have anything to do with the car seats. It has to do, I heard you talk that you were a au pair at one point. And I co-nanny with an au pair. The family I nanny with, they have an au pair during the day, and I take over when they need me. It's not every day, it's like once a month. They may need me for like a week at a time. I have a full-time job at a preschool. I'm a preschool teacher, and they need me because they go out of town. Not lately, but they'll go like to Italy or to Mexico, whatever, for their job. So they need me to help out after school, for the overnight part, for fixing dinners, dropping them off at school, and then I go on to work at actually a different preschool. But they just switched over their au pairs. I've been through 4 au pairs with them. And this new one that just started in February, I've done 1 week with her, and we did not get along. And it was really, really difficult, being with them. And she was like argumentative over everything. And I've known this family, they have 4 children since the very first one was 16 weeks old. So I know the whole routine of the whole house And she would say, that's not how you do it. It's not how you do it. And I'm like, I know how you do things at this house. And she kept saying, well, that's not according to my contract. So, but I don't know how their contracts are. You know, we've never had any disagreements ever. And when, you know, like when the family got back, the parents got back, they work together. So they're always gone away from home together. And I called them and told them I needed to speak with them because I knew I couldn't do this, you know, every month and disagree with them. And they said, okay, well, we'll sit down and talk. And of course, then the virus happened because she was like holding them inside the their bedroom door shut. That was their timeout, and they were like screaming. And I'm like, you can't do that to a 2-year-old, making them stay in their bedroom. You know, send them to their beds. She sent them to bed without dinner, and I'm like, you can't do that. So I don't know. Is there any advice you can say? Like, I don't know what contracts are or anything.
So first of all, it was so long ago that I was like right out of high school, which I'm gonna totally age myself, but it's like more than 20 years ago for me, right? So I was like fresh out of high school, moved to London. I don't remember the contract saying anything about like lock up the child in the bedroom. And I always, whether it was working as an au pair or working as a nanny, kind of sponged in the atmosphere of the family and continued their practices rather than like arguing like mine was the best, which at 18, I'm sure it wasn't, since I've never had children, right? So I just, I think the sit down with the family is probably a good idea, you know, and then following your own guideline, working it out with the family. But I do not remember there being anything about locking up the children and or sending them to bed hungry, you know, which I do not ever recall doing in my life, you know, unless like the child was pre-teenager, the eldest, and was like, I'm not eating this, and they marched off or something, you know. So
well, they have a teenager, but I mean, they have 5 children actually, but she was already gone, you know, doing her thing that night. But it was like they're 2, 5, 7, and 9, you know, so they're definitely not, you can't do that with, you know, not even a 2-year-old, you know.
No,
and she's
Shannon,
only allowed to be there, you know, be so-called on call for, you know, 45 hours at the most. So she was on a set schedule, and then I would take over, and she would be out there, and she would tell them, no, you can't do that or whatever. I'm like, during my time, so to speak.
I was definitely on a set schedule, but it turned out it was more to protect the au pairs, because when we moved to London, some of the families, like let's say I was on a 32-hour contract a week, right? So I would work some hours in the morning and some hours in the afternoon. But some of the nannies or some of the au pairs were in a situation where the family was like, well, you live in my house, you're gonna work all day, etc. But I don't remember it being as particular as to of the care of the child. But I think Deborah had something to say, you know. I don't know what the situation is with this particular agency or anything that the au pair is working for.
Shannon, you are definitely challenged whenever you have other help in the home, whatever it might be. We have multiple families that have multiple nannies and other household staff. And again, it's more important than ever for you to have that family meeting. And the family meeting should include the other nannies or au pairs, so that you can put things on the table where everyone is in the conversation. And because you don't want to have that family meeting and bring up to the family, oh, the au pair said this, because then you're tattletaling on the au pair, and your life is going to be difficult having to work with this person. So you definitely want to bring it up together as a family meeting and discuss it with the parents and ask them, I just want to confirm what your discipline policy is, and basically just put everything on the table and let the parents speak about what their wishes are and how they want you to care for their children and discipline their children.
Oh, yes. I mean, I've never even seen them spank the children, and they've gotten, they've had attitudes before, and they've gotten away with a lot, I think, because the parents are gone all the time, which I don't agree with, but you have to do whatever the parents, do. The au pair, not even just, if I put the 2-year-old in timeout because he was, peeing in a bowl right there in front of me instead of going in the potty, he did that deliberately, and he's pretty smart, and she just grabbed him and took him upstairs and shut him in his bedroom for a timeout. And I'm like, no, that's not appropriate. That was not an appropriate timeout. And I'm like, I said, you went for training, right? And she says, yeah, I did. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Everyone's idea of training might be different. So,
Yeah.
and it is, of course, important to listen to the parents' wishes, but you need to understand what those wishes are, and apparently so does she.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Let's see, am I missing anybody here? You can unmute if I'm missing you and you want to say something.
Hi, I have a quick question, actually.
Hello.
Hi. So I work for a family right now full time, and they might be moving to another state at the end of the year. And I don't know what the standard is for nannies in regards to that, but they are possibly talking about having me relocate with them. So I've been trying to find a contract to sort of cover that, and I haven't been able to find anything. Do you have any resources for that?
Yes, we can help you with that. It's probably best that we chat about that one-on-one. So do you want to give me a call and then we can talk about it?
Yeah, that would be great.
Are you with an agency, or did you?
I've applied through you guys before for previous jobs, but I've never actually taken on a job. I've gone to a couple of interviews for positions through you guys.
But this position that you have now, did you find it through an agency or on your own?
On my own.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I'll help you with that, Danielle.
Okay, that would be great. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah, hi Deborah, it's Janice.
Hi Janice.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Very well, thank you. This has been very informative today, it's been wonderful. My question for you is, do you know of any agencies in Miami that you could recommend? You're in Tampa, aren't you?
Yes. What I would recommend is that there is an organization called APNA. It's the Association of Premier Nanny Agencies.
APNA.
And if that agency is of high standards, they'll be a member of that organization. So I would check there first. And if you're not finding anyone there, then you can go on the INA. The site is nanny.org. It's also the International Nanny Association, and they have a directory of nanny agencies as well.
Wonderful. Thanks very much.
Welcome. Anyone else? You can unmute if you have a question.
I have an announcement.
Okay.
The giveaway link is very important. I'm seeing from Sue. They're doing giveaways right now. So I'm going to share the link when we're done in about 10 minutes. If everyone would go and register for those giveaways, I think it's pretty important that we do that soon. So I'm going to put it in the chat box, and I'll also send it in a text message to everybody like I did for the meeting link as well.
Thank you, Sabrina. And just so you know, if you're with our agency or you're not, everything that you tell us, if you have a question or concern about the family that you're with, whether we placed you or not, is confidential. We won't be running back and telling the family that, oh, your nanny called us and told us this. That will not happen. The same goes for the families. So sometimes they will call us and ask us for advice. And so it would be confidential as well. That goes for both sides.
This is Amber. I just wanted to say thank you for putting this on and for making it available at no cost. And I always value this. I think it's my 4th year coming to these. And I know that Sabrina, Dee, Debbie, you guys all work really hard. And thank you to the speakers. I want you to know that it's appreciated. So that's all.
Thanks, Amber. I appreciate that. We really miss being together and seeing everyone and chatting in person. But hopefully next year we'll be able to again. So we're looking forward to that. I'm sure everybody else is too.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi guys, can you hear me? Can you guys hear me?
Yes, you're a little low, but I can hear you.
Sorry, it's probably because it's a phone, probably. My name's Shannon. I'm actually new to you guys and everything, and I'm actually glad I stumbled upon you guys probably at the best but worst time right now because it's the coronavirus. But a family that I've been with for 3 years, they're a great family, but I've never been through an agency before, and I've actually have been nanny and babysitting since I was 12. I'm 38 now. And this would be the first time that I would be working with an agency if I start with you guys, which I hope you do whenever it gets started. But I guess some other people had questions that you did answer, but I just wanted to make sure I heard correctly. So if and when I do, I guess, go through you guys, you said you matched us up with a family to see if us, I guess, or if they pick us to work with the families, if I said that right, sorry.
Okay, so the way it works with our agency is that if you're looking for, this is regarding a permanent position, correct?
Right, I would love to work full-time. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the jobs on the job board are permanent positions. They could be part-time or full-time or live-in, but those are permanent positions. They're not temporary. So if you go on our website at nannieswhocare.com, you view the job board, you can apply online for those jobs. And then Dee is the person that would be assisting you, and I'll let her speak from here because she'll tell you our process.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Shannon. Yes, what you can do is go on the job board, see any of the jobs that you are interested in.
Okay.
Hit apply. I will get that notification, and then I'm going to give you a call. We're going to go over all of the jobs. What I do is I go through the location. We go through the job description and make sure that, because I want my nannies to be a good match for the families as much as I want my families to be a good match for my nannies, because if a nanny's not happy, she's not going to stay. But we can go over all of them. If you see more than one, click more than one, we'll go over them at the same time. Like I said earlier, some of my positions are on hold, but that doesn't mean that the families aren't looking. They might not be interviewing right now. And if you're a good match, I want to make sure that when they say, okay, we're ready to start, I have you in the system ready to go. So if you've already done your application, your nanny application?
Yes, I did fill everything out. Everything was sent in. I put in my references and everything. Wonderful. Like that. So, and then I guess I've just been back and forth right now with you guys as far as pretty much up to date to now.
Oh,
so,
definitely. Okay. So, yeah, definitely. I can give you a call Monday and we can go over all the jobs if you like, if you're real. Okay, I'll give you a call Monday.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else have any questions? I see a lot of everybody stay safe in the chat box. Okay, well, then I guess if we don't have any other questions, we're going to close this meeting. And I just want to remind you all to take care of yourself during this time, this difficult time that we're having right now. If you are quarantined or you're just simply safer at home, it's the time to prepare yourself for when we're ready to go back to work. So set yourself some goals and get some things accomplished. Clean your house. And then when it's time to go back to work, you'll be ready and refreshed. So I'm thankful that all of you are here. We had a great turnout, and I hope to see you in person next year at our training day. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you guys for coming.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.